Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching fourth part of What If Naruto Was Trained by Ninjas from Another World. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
With a frown on his face, Shikamaru was resting his weight against the railing. He was casting bitter looks at Sakura. By a hair's breadth, he had defeated 10-10. The game hadn't lasted very long. She could have thrown anything in the arena. She could throw her weapons almost anywhere in the ring with a reasonable degree of accuracy since she was an expert at them. It was easier to avoid them if there was some distance between them, but she knew when to keep her distance and he couldn't wait to hang back. Nor was she going to run out of gas before he became too exhausted to dodge. To the almost ridiculous extent that she was armed. It was nearly impossible to move outside of her range or get too close in the small area thanks to her chakra abilities. Along one side of the arena, there was a grove of trees. He had lured her there in search of cover, using the darkness to conceal his attacks. He was almost a pincushion just reaching it, but it was a winning strategy for him. He had several small nicks on his arms and legs, as well as a cut on his cheek and a cut on his shoulder. He'd struggled to keep her away long enough to see her shadow, even with cover. After that, he simply placed one of her own kunai against her neck. He caught her just as she was about to toss one in the air. To get her to try, he needed to reveal himself to her at the right moment. She was still holding her weapon, and his hand had been empty. He had come dangerously close to getting stabbed in the chest and had almost missed catching her in time. When she found herself holding her own weapon against her jugular, Genma put an end to things. As it was, he'd just gotten done witnessing Tamari, the sand girl, treat Choji like a gigantic racquetball with her fan. She would face him in his next match. The wall now had several large dents in it, and it had hurt to watch his friends match. Motion sickness and vertigo caused Choji to lose more than injuries. His pal was not eating, just sitting against the wall with his stomach held in place. In addition to having a sick appearance, he was depressed for other reasons. He had never seen Choji for that length of time without a bag of food in his hands when it was available. Despite his success, Choji was not victorious. Though the real source of his concern wasn't Ino, he was still concerned about him. Sakura was behaving strangely. She had given him her congratulations on winning and received strange looks from her teammates as a result. From the waiting area, she had applauded him and urged him to kick the girl's sorry butt. She would approach him to assist in carrying Choji to his leaning position. Even though he didn't know her well, he could tell something wasn't right by the looks Sasuke and Naruto were giving her. He took a step back and sat with Choji up against the wall. Hey, that girl Sakura. She's acting weird. Still looking a little pale, was the tubby boy. He wasn't happy with her and said, maybe she feels bad? She's just trying to act nice. I won't forgive her. After what she did to Ino. Shikamaru scowled. He looked over and saw her hanging off Sasuke's back, saying, no. She's acting like Ino. She was massaging her head against his neck, a broad smile on her face. Choji had a perplexed expression. What? She killed her. The boy with raven hair, who was nearby, gave Sakura a backhand and gave her a fierce look. What the hell are you doing? Cut it out. Naruto moved to get in their way. Sakura. What's gotten into you? The girl gave him a glare while pouting. The woman stuck her tongue out and made a V with her two fingers, saying, hey. We've got to fight, don't we? No way I'm gonna lose to you. She was making a lot of noise, shaking her hair and tossing it around as though it was longer than it actually was. The ninja in a hood nodded. He took her by the shoulder and began dragging her in the direction of the stairs, asking, yeah. What's up with you? You're being strange all of a sudden. Ever since you got back from checking on your friend. Sakura gave him a fierce, irritated look. She lowered her eyes and clenched her fists, saying, I'm not her friend. That huge four. She's not even my rival. I'm her superior, in love and ninjutsu. Shikamaru scowled at the scene as he stood up. Seeing that he was paying attention, Sasuke glanced at Sakura and Naruto without saying anything. Shut up, would you? When did you start being so loud and obnoxious? He's right, you're being strange, Haruno. Even for you. Naruto snorted a little. He watched her almost bounce past him and thought to himself, well, we've got our own fight to worry about. What the hell is with her? Shikamaru inclined in Choji's direction. That's strange. It's weirding her friends out. The scrawny boy swore and appeared a little angry. So? Nara gave him a scowl. He moved in Naruto's direction. Uzumaki, I need a word with you. The ninja with the hood was halfway down the steps. Sakura was already skipping onto the field, saying, huh? I can't talk right now. The boy, not caring who heard, called down in a loud and frightened tone. Ino. Behind you. Look out. Sakura whirled around, holding a kunai. She scowled as she raised her gaze to the boy. Huh? She stumbled for a while before raising her palm to her head, and Naruto watched. What? What's with you, Shikamaru? Choji was taken aback. What are you doing? Are you crazy? Nara narrowed her eyes at the kunoichi and glared before turning back to face the arena's center. I thought so. The ninja with a hood made his way onto the field. Maybe you shouldn't fight? There's something wrong with you, Sakura. A look of rage formed in her eyes as she scowled at him. Worried, Uzumaki? Her partner gave a nod. Yes. It's not because I think I might lose either. Beside him, Shikamaru hopped down. Ino. The girl with the pink hair looked up at him. She appeared irate, but she later straightened up and became more composed. That isn't my name. Genma took a step forward. Nara, you need to leave the arena. Shikamaru gave a nod. Yeah. I just need to tell him something. It's important. I'm not planning on getting in the way. Naruto gave the referee a quick look. He turned to face Nara and said, she's acting off. You know something about it? Sakura gave the Junin a look. He shrugged, turning to face the two boys, I'm fine. With a quiet voice, Nara turned to face Naruto. Uzumaki, careful. That technique Ino used, the Shin Ten Shin, it allows the user to take over someone's body with their mind. When she broke the shadow clone jutsu she tricked Ino into, it almost killed her. I'm not sure, but I'm not so sure she's alone in there anymore. He was tapping his head on the side as he spoke. Then he turned to face the stairs and said, just be careful. With a nod, Naruto spoke softly. You're right. She's been acting off since she came back from the clinic. The two members of Team 7 took a stand in the center of the ring. Sakura balled her fists and glared at the boy. Done with your meeting? The ninja in a hood nodded. It's not important now. Sakura charged him, lashed out with her leg and spun it towards his head, saying, then we'll get started. Naruto tried to dodge it and move quickly past her. His sword came to a cold stop and he growled. Haruno had used her palms to stop his scabbard. She backhanded him in the face while grinning wildly. Uzumaki fell sprawled on the ground, his back to the dirt. With a start, he bolted to her. Sakura threw her fist into the ground and leapt over his head. She jerked Naruto out by his collar and retracted her fist as it went into the ground up to her elbow. Instead of punching him, she turned around and held him in front of her, saying, I'm not that stupid. She'd gone over, and the nin was slashing his sword at the face of his own double. The boy in Haruno's hands disappeared, giving her a brief moment of triumphant smiling. The moment she felt her hands empty and the attack narrowly missed, she dove hard. She kicked her leg out to sweep him and sent him onto his chest next to her, saying, it's not going to be that easy. Her foot struck the spot on the ground where he'd been, and Naruto rolled away, landing in a crouch about 3 feet away from her. Sakura persisted in her pressing. She knew it would be much more difficult for her to win the battle if she lost sight of him. He ducked under her leg as she hooked a kick at his face and punched down to catch the top of his head. Gritting her teeth, the kunoichi let out a grunt as her fist came into contact with his blade's scabbard. He pushed her back and held it up with his palms. She shook off her wrist and used her other hand to spin around and give him a backhand beneath the block in his face. Naruto was flung back a few feet and landed in a roll once more. Hey. I knew. The girl exclaimed as the boy straightened himself and disappeared in front of her, making a few hand gestures. There was no dust, no cloud, and no cover. What the? No way. He simply vanished. Naruto appeared to flicker into existence behind her. His sword scabbard struck the back of her head as he became solid once more. Sakura hit the dust with her face first. She lurched forward into a roll, pushing herself onto her elbows. With his sword drawn, Naruto attempted to impale her by using its tip. With some skill, she had moved aside, turned, and threw free kunai at him. With a growl of frustration, the boy used the flat edge of his sword to knock them away and jumped back, putting it away. He could have counted on 1 or 2 missing before, but now, hey. You've improved more than I thought. Each of the 3 had been spot on. He charged again, becoming a blur of motion. He tried to rush past Sakura, but she blocked his covered sword strike by crossing her arms in front of her belly. She broke her clone and disappeared right in front of him. Huh? The girl jumped up from the ground and slammed her fist into Naruto's jaw, causing his eyes to widen. He was flung into the air and back, landing hard on his back in the dirt. Sakura laughed and dove down at him from above, holding 2 kunai. I have you. A clone would have disappeared. This was his actual body. When she landed over Uzumaki, 2 arms hooked under her widely spread arms. 2 of the boy's clones caught her arms in midair, hurling her back into the dirt while the boy's mask concealed his sly smile. He got up and was gone from view once more. The 2 clones who had tricked Sakura with a kick landed on their backs and scattered. It had been a simple fall that didn't even cause her any pain. She knew it was less an attack and more an attempt to make her forget who the real him was. She got to her feet and said, "Damn." She was by herself. She spun around multiple times, observing her surroundings as best she could and raising dust in her wake, saying, "I've got to get him to show himself." Over the arena, she yelled, "Show yourself. You coward." Nobody responded to her. She wasn't sure why she had done it in the first place, even though she knew it wouldn't work. Naruto was calm, collected, and figuring out how to deal with her. He was holding out for his chance to attack. It made her shiver in response. She looked over her shoulder, her lips quivering. Naruto stood behind her, motionless, his hand resting on his sword behind his shoulder. The kunoichi with pink hair laughed. Something wrong, Uzumaki? Her opponent merely stayed motionless, snarling slightly. She spun around, holding her kunai and winding it around her finger. She pulled back her arm and said, "I've got you now. If you don't admit defeat, I'm going to put this between your eyes. You can't move." For a brief instant, the hooded nin shook slightly. "I can't believe you think I'm this stupid." Sakura exhibited a moment of confusion. She exclaimed, "What?" as she felt something fly toward her face, took a bullet to the middle of her forehead, and fell onto her back. She felt a blade across her throat and simply looked up at the sky. Beside her, beyond the reach of her jutsu, was Naruto on his knees. He was unable to get through her hair jutsu sphere and asked, "You didn't think I'd noticed that your hair was shorter?" She had made a ring that was just out of his sword's reach by using her foot to distribute the hair she had chopped off around herself. He had attracted her attention with a shadow clone, then struck her in the forehead with his empty scabbard, wielding it like a spear. He had abruptly broken his clone jutsu, leaving her with insufficient time to avoid it. With a growl, the kunoichi averted her gaze from him. "Damn." Genma broke up the fight. Naruto extended his hand, led her up, and pulled her to her feet. She accepted it with a mildly irritated expression. She heard nothing from the boy. He looked up at Shikamaru as he made his way back to the waiting area, saying, "When did she learn that jutsu?" "That was the one Ino used in." "I see." Sakura leapt on Sasuke's back, rushing past him. "Good luck, Sasuke," she exclaimed, giving him a lot of annoyance as she hugged him. He growled as he pushed her away and made his way toward the arena, saying, "Hey. I'll be fine. Let go." Grabbing his shoulder, Naruto prevented him from passing. "Don't forget, if you lose now, you won't be able to slap me around." Uchiha laughed a little. "There's no way I'll let that happen." Gaara observed for a brief moment before disappearing and reappearing in the center of the ring like a tiny tornado. She leaned on the railing and gave him a cheer as Naruto passed by. Go Sasuke. Kick his butt. You're the greatest. Shikamaru maintained his focus on the middle of the ring, where Sasuke and the Sand Nin were engaged in combat. You see what I mean? The ninja in the hood nodded. He looked over as Choji scowled at the two and said, yeah. I think I get it. She used Ino's technique. I'm not sure she realizes it. What are you two talking about? He was glanced at by Shikamaru. That girl Sakura. She's got Ino's mind still. Naruto gave him a glance. Maybe. Shadow clones are useful for spying. When you break the jutsu, you remember what the clone experienced as if you'd done it yourself. If that girl's mind was in her clone, who knows what might have happened? Choji scowled at the girl. Huh? Is that bad? What's going on? Nara gave him a look. We're not sure yet. Naruto gave a nod of approval. This could be bad. Shikamaru scowled. We'll need to see Ino first. She's at the hospital, and we won't be able to see her before the exams end anyway. Naruto turned to face them both. I'll keep an eye on her. She's out of the matches now anyway. Let me know what you've learned about this later. Nara nodded gravely. Yeah. Even if I'm wrong, and Ino is fine. It might not be good for Sakura. I'll let you know after I've seen her again. The short boy snarled. What do we care? With a quick glance, Naruto shrugged. If he's right, we might need Sakura to help your friend. If she's really got her mind still, that would mean it's not in your friend Ino's body anymore. Choji's jaw dropped as he raised an eyebrow at him. Huh? Nara gave a nod. He's right. We don't know yet though. Naruto spun around to leave. Even if we're right, there's nothing we can do right now. We'll need help no matter what. We should learn all we can, and then find out what we can do later. For now, the best thing we can do is learn all we can. The more information we've got, the better the chances we can do something about it later. He stopped and glanced over his shoulder. Any chance Ino taught her that jutsu she tried to paralyze me with? Shikamaru gave a headshake. No. It's a Yamanaka family technique. You saw how she used it. It's something they use for holding people in place for the Shinten Shin and similar techniques. Uzumaki was standing next to his teammate a moment later. Are you all right? She appeared angry with him. I'm fine. You didn't break me. He gave her a quick glance. That's not what I mean. Where did you learn the jutsu you used to paralyze my clone? You've never used it before. She gave him a quick glance. My mother. It's a family jutsu. Naruto nodded slightly. He turned to look at Sasuke and Gaara and said to himself, just curious. It was as he said, though, and there wasn't much he could do about it right now. This isn't looking good. I hope that girl is all right. This could be a problem either way. It was not the time to discuss it, and he felt it would be better to speak with Kakashi about it after the tests were done. Excitement was running high in the crowd. Many in the crowd were taken aback by Naruto, and Sasuke's battle with Rock Lee left a lasting impression. Many of the people in attendance had come for the fight that awaited them. For most of the people gathered, it was the main event. With a sneer, Sasuke laughed at his opponent. Well, aren't you friendly? Gaara crossed his arms and simply stared at him. Genma gave the all-clear to go. Sasuke lunged ahead. His opponent did not move. He simply stood there. He gasped as Uchiha lashed out with his foot in a kick. Huh? Before him had materialized a wall of sand. He blocked the blows with a fist, a slingshot with his feet, and a torrent of blows directed at the sand that spurted out of the gourd on the boy's back and into the air. When Gaara noticed Sasuke's hands and feet getting closer to his face than he was used to, his eyes widened a little. His attacks were being halted by the sand, but not completely. He growled as his arms slightly uncrossed. As he took a step toward Sasuke, he experienced something he hadn't felt in a long time. His head twisted as his jaw exploded with pain. Uchiha had taken a blow from the side and was forced to leap back as sand swarmed towards him. Gaara stumbled, grabbing at his face. He's fast. Above his head materialized the wall of sand. Sasuke landed close after bouncing off of it. The Sand Nin laughed a little. Hey. I understand. Sasuke had two of them, with one beside him and one on each side. Oh my god. Sand? What in the world is this? The Sand Nin gave him a scowl. So, your speed is just an illusion. With the sand swirling around Gaara to deflect multiple blows, the twins blurred together. Two shurikens struck the spot where the Sand Nin had been standing, and he leapt back. A foot slammed across his jaw as he hit the ground, sending him flying into the wall. The sand aided in the redhead's rise to his feet and protected him from his opponent, keeping Sasuke ahead of him. Not really. Gaara scowled at his rival with a furious expression. I see. Raising his hand, he strode out of the crater his impact had left in the wall. The sand blasted toward Sasuke, and he flipped away. It tried to wrap around him, making spikes, and he had to do acrobatic flips to get out of the way. Hey. Gaara strode forward, growling. A sharp blow went right under his jaw, causing him to blink in surprise. The boy from Uchiha had leapt off the ground and struck his jaw with his foot, propelling him skyward. Sasuke materialized behind him as he hung suspended in midair. This attack? The boy took multiple hard blows from the raven. Haired Leaf Genin in the air before he landed with his foot across his stomach. He scampered off, scowling at the Sand Nin in the hole he dug. Hey. That hurt, I'll bet. Tell me you're not done, please. Finished? Why do you think that? To be honest, it didn't hurt all that much. Sasuke leapt away, gasping. The figure in the crater crumbled into sand like a broken porcelain statue, and his enemy had materialized right behind him as the sand from Gaara's gourd reached for him. What? He used a body switching technique of some sort. Gaara's eyes were filled with danger. Sasuke kept out of reach by dodging his sand with enough speed. How far are you able to run? You will soon be caught by me and then instantly perish. When Uchiha threw a few kunai, the sand grabbed them out of the air and made a growl. Once more, the Leaf Nin materialized behind him, grinning. I don't need to run. The sand around the Sand Nin burst and scattered, and he covered himself with his arms. What? Explosive notes? He was struck hard in the abdomen and rolled away from a slashing arm, clutching at his face. Sasuke had developed new eyes. The Shanringan turned and growled angrily, staring down at the Sand Nin. A small amount of blood was leaking through his fingers. What? His opponent glared down at him while grasping a kunai and flicking blood off the tip onto the ground. Gaara's eyes grew angry and he growled. Sadness. His blood is what I want. Yes, mother, please return all that he took from Maya more than he did, including his blood. As the sand enveloped his body, Sasuke displayed a shocked expression. Gaara gave him a furious glare as the kunai clattered out of his grasp. Just die. He held up his hand and closed his fist. The sand enveloped Uchiha. He saw the boy make a hand motion, and his eyes widened. The grains became red, and the sand appeared to crumble. Gaara watched and laughed a mad, angry laugh. He ceased laughing, glared over his shoulder, and let out a scream. His arm had a kunai knife embedded in it. He dropped to one knee. His eyes were filled with panic as he gasped. It was unlike anything he had ever felt. Sasuke had another one reared back and was standing close by. Hey. It is easy to divert him. He was drawing the sand away from the boy with clones so he could attack when he was most vulnerable, that is, while it was being used. The kunai that his opponent threw struck another sand wall, causing Gaara to collapse to his knees. The barrier did not dissolve this time. Huh? A ball of sand encased Gaara. Kankuro frowned nervously as he watched. No. This is bad. Tamari watched and appeared equally concerned. He's conversing with people. How is he acting? Kankuro was helpless and could only watch. He won't notice the indication. Is he really not using that jutsu now? The young lady snarled. The strategy. How should we proceed? Their teacher scowled. Stay calm. Kankuro gave him a quick look. I've never witnessed Gaara suffer such a blow. He sustained an injury. I have no idea what he'll do. Tamari gave him a quick look. Whoever did it will be killed by him. Look, the third eye is there. He's gone insane. I believe that his interest in the plan has diminished. Naruto briefly turned his head to face them, but none of them saw it. He kept his mouth shut and his thoughts to himself. Plan? He narrowed his eyes slightly and turned to face the man seated with the Hokage before making a quiet speech. Something isn't right. Sakura gave him a quick look. Huh? He spoke softly. Remain vigilant. I believe that something is happening. Sasuke was striking the sandball, nearly getting impaled as multiple spikes shot out from its surface during the attack. Gasping for air, Sasuke stared at the ball in front of him. Hey. It appears that I will have to reveal my ace. Although I knew this man was powerful, this is. Leaping back, he hurried off. After landing on the wall and becoming stuck there for a while, he lowered his hand to execute a jutsu. Guy gasped as she watched with Kakashi from the stands. What? That is. Kakashi gave a nod. Indeed. Sasuke and I share the same type, which is why I took him for training purposes only. Well, that could come in handy later. Something is off, sensei. Kakashi arched an eyebrow at the man who had moved up next to him. Naruto? The man's eyes revealed who he was. Silence up. The Sand People are planning something. I overheard them discussing a plan and a signal of some kind. There seems to be activity here, in my opinion. They fear that Gaara the child is messing things up in some way. Gazing at the disguised genin, Guy narrowed his eyes. What? He turned to face the three sand nin in the tournament waiting area. Bucky? Kakashi nodded. Guy, we ought to be prepared. I think he's correct. Sasuke leapt over the wall and shot ahead as fast as a bullet. With a glowing chakra full of his hand, he was moving as quickly as Lee without his weights. Sakura let out a gasp. Whoa! What's that? It was producing a sound akin to that of birds, like hundreds of chirps. Naruto gave a disinterested grunt. His arm is glowing purple, and it's fast and loud. Really? That flamboyant jerk. Sasuke's two struck the sandball from both sides. Glaring at the shell, they were elbow deep in it. Kankuro, watching with his stunned team, gasped. No way. Tamari stumbled. He made it through? It's not possible. One leaf genin disappeared, while the other gave a grunted tug on his arm. For a brief moment, power seemed to flow down his arm, causing him to narrow his eyes and scream. There was a loud screaming coming from inside the ball. Crystal. My bloodstream. It's. My blood is in it. It was the biggest hit Gaara had ever taken. Inside the ball of sand, he was bleeding profusely and was having difficulty controlling it. Never mind so much of it, he'd never seen or felt any of his own blood before. He sounded scared and angry, and he was in a panic. Uchiha leapt back after tearing his arm free from the shell. What the? As he forced himself free, a clawed arm of some sort reached out after him. Something looked like an eye, something monstrous and inhuman, staring at him angrily from the hole in front of him. Gaara's arms were hanging at his sides, the sand had shifted away from him, and his shoulders were covered in blood. His eyes were wide, and drops of sweat were streaming down his face as he struggled to breathe. He collapsed to his knees, raising an eyebrow at Sasuke. The leaf nin watched, perplexed. No. Not those eyes. While waiting, Sakura raised her gaze to the heavens. What? Feathers? Kakashi on the other side of the stadium squinted. Guy turned to face him. Kakashi, this is. The man gave a nod. Yes. Genjutsu. Naruto had a perplexed expression. What? How come? What topic are you discussing? I see nothing at all. Guy gave off a moment of surprise, but Kakashi kept Maeda focused by placing his hand on his shoulder. Don't worry about him. The two men simultaneously cried out, "Kai!" and sealed their hands. As everyone in the stands began to sag in the stands, the hooded nin cast a glance around, noting that several nin were acting similarly to Guy and Kakashi. Sakura was able to both attack and parry it at the same time. The other sand nin remained unaffected, as did Genma, Sasuke, and Gaara. Naruto got up and surveyed his surroundings. 9 others. There were about 4 of him sitting around the stadium when his disguise disappeared. The boy got to his feet and turned to face them, looking surprised at Guy. "Go on, please. It appears that we should fight now." Hokage peered at Kage from the private seats. On either side of the man materialized 2 sand nin. "Shall we?" "Aging gentleman. Be careful." Kage gave a growl. "What?" A detonator switch was produced by one of his 2 men, who detonated it. The area in front of the booth exploded, sending a cloud of smoke and dust into the air, and Naruto landed between the Hokage and the sand cage. The boy was forcefully knocked off his feet by the Kage's blow. "You tiny one. Perish." The hooded nin struck the side of the Hokage's chair with such force that the stone broke, sending blood flying from his lips. The juvenile nin disappeared with a cloud of smoke. With a growl of rage, the enemy Kage extended his arm and charged forward. "No." With the elderly man holding their hands, 2 more boys were leaping out of the booth and toward the arena. 3 snakes blasted out of his sleeve as his arm lashed out. As the old man was being pulled free, one of the hooded nin was bitten on the neck, arm, and leg, but the other one managed to cross the edge with Sarutobi. As they both landed, the old man cast a quick glance at the young nin. "Uzumaki. Although I appreciate it, you should let me handle this." Naruto gave a nod. "Come on, regardless of who does what, we should put some distance between us." With the Hokage by his side, he made his way towards Sasuke and the trio from sand. "We ought to reorganize and gather our thoughts. I detest unexpected assaults. They are awful." The Hokage gave a nod. "Indeed." The 3 sands watched. Baki gave a growl. "Damn, he missed." He turned to face his students. "Gaara, the plan." Kankuro and Temari both had worried expressions. The girl raised her voice. "Not at all. He's got adverse reactions. He is incapable of doing it." With a growl, her brother turned to face their leader. "What should we do now? Without Gaara, is it possible?" Baki turned to face Genma. He and Sasuke were separated by the man. "Cease the mission. You guys grab Gaara and turn around." Kankuro appeared taken aback. "What about you?" The man gave them a scowl. "I'll go into combat. Go now." Leaping away, the genin held Gaara in between them. Genma glanced at the last of the sand nin. "Is the leader of this party Orochimaru?" The adversary nin smiled. "Who can say? Come and join the fun." Sasuke felt irritated. "What's going on?" Grandma scowled. "The tests are finished. You head out to find Gaara and the rest. You've already reached Chunin level. Make yourself useful if you're a leaf shinobi." Sasuke began to look away. "Uchiha, don't you dare obey such a boneheaded order." After landing next to Genma, Naruto scowled at him. The man gave him a furious look as he glanced at him. Genma kept himself in front of the genin while Baki hurried off. He looked over at the ninja in the hood. "What are you doing for God's sake?" "I provided an." He turned to glare at the man as another blonde nin was approaching them with the Hokage by his side. "Are you really that stupid? You want him to flee after 3 retreating genin when the village is under attack? Please stop talking. It is our duty to protect the village. Pursuing them won't make that any better. They're not a threat. They're just retreating." Sakura approached them with a jog. "What's going on?" She turned to face her teammates. Everyone fainted. Some kind of genjutsu attack occurred. A black robed figure with a hat resembling the Hokage's descended upon them all. Gazing with a look of murder in his eyes, Kage walked out of the wreck of the booth. 4 nin wearing masks and cloaks with the sound symbol on their foreheads stood in front of him. Naruto was pointed at by the case cage. "Boy, you are so dead." Sarutobi gave him a scowl. "I'll take care of this. None of you can handle him." To the men encircling case cage, Naruto nodded. "Hey, I guess that means we play with his friends then." Sasuke looked up into the bleachers. Kakashi-sensei and Guy-sensei are still awake. Genma looked at Naruto and nodded. "Yes. But they appear to be fairly busy." "Well, we are unable to flee. I suppose that's when we fight." Sakura grimaced and clenched her fists. Naruto let out a little sigh. "Let's avoid losing our lives. These guys must be pretty strong, I suppose." He gave the Hokage a look. "Don't worry, old man, we'll keep them busy and out of your way." A man standing next to him laughed. The case cage addressed his henchman. "You'll all regret it if the person in the hood makes it out alive. He's blocked my path far too often. Even if it means allowing the others to escape, kill him." Seeing the enemy cage look at him and narrow his eyes slightly, Sasuke narrowed his own. "I don't like that look." The sand cage gave him a nod. "I desire Uchiha to live. Later on, we have plans for him." Sasuke appeared taken aback. "That guy. You're working with that Orochimaru jerk." Before him stood Sakura. "Those were nin from the past. They had you in their sights." He gave her a brief look of annoyance, but remained silent. Hokage continued to watch the case cage. Rather than looking angry, he appeared frustrated and sad. "You can still put an end to this. We ought to settle our differences amicably rather than inflicting death and destruction on our people." The man gave a headshake. "No, it's time to put an end to these pointless fighting games. Henceforth, history is altered." A scowl lit up the man in front of the Hokage. Behind him, with Genma standing next to them, were the 3 genin from Team 7. "I expected this day to arrive. Tell me, Orochimaru, what you want to achieve." As the case cage tore off his own face, Sakura gasped and looked at him. "What?" With his hand on his sword blade, Naruto stood by her side, observing the 4 men standing behind him. With narrowed eyes, Sasuke snarled. He appeared a little tired and was holding his side. More than half of his chakra was gone, and he still felt a little exhausted from his battle with Gaara. "Damn." With a laugh, the Sound Nin leader revealed himself and threw off his disguise. "I told you should hurry up and choose the 5th, because you're going to die here, Sarutobi-sensei." The elderly man exuded composure and ease. "I don't know how many times I've told you, it's not over until it's over." Genma gave the 3 genin a quick look. "Relax. Even I wouldn't assault that man. The only person who can take him is Hokage. Be concerned for his pals. We'll be occupied for sure." Naruto kept staring at the 4 ninjas. Every one of them had his full attention. "Sakura, their attention is on me. They should all follow me, according to that Orochimaru guy. Remove Sasuke from this place, return to the waiting area, and use the genjutsu on the remaining genin." Sasuke growled. "Not at all. I'm not going anywhere." With a furrowed brow, the girl pressed his arm around her shoulders. "Cease talking. He's accurate. You will cause more harm than good and have no more chakra." She raised her head to see Kakashi and Guy standing there with one of Naruto's clones encircled by 9 ninjas. "We're going to need all the help we can get." Genma nodded. "That seems like a plan. While you divert their attention, I'll cover those 2. Avoid getting killed." With his blade drawn, Naruto nodded. "I don't plan on it." He turned right and went past Orochimaru and Sarutobi. The Sound leader and 2 of the 4 nin began to approach him. The other 2 made their way over to the group. Orochimaru cast a sidelong glance at the entourage making their way out of the arena. "Avoid making me say things again. Let them go. I gave you the order. We don't care about Uchiha. I'll see them soon enough. All that's up there are a few pitiful genin. Take that prick out. He's more annoying than the rest." He should not try to flee. With a frown, Sarutobi watched as the two nin pursued Genma while the two kids stopped and advanced in Naruto's direction. On one side of the arena, the hooded nin was backing away, guiding them toward the grove. With his kunai, Kakashi dove into the air and slashed two of the attacking nin's necks. In an attempt to catch his instructor in midair, Naruto raced beneath him and between the two dead bodies, severing a third at the waist. A second genin was coming up behind him when the young one bounced off the wall and sliced the head off. He landed, gasping, and dove to dodge another enemy who had leapt behind him, knife raised to slay him above the head. With his fist in the nin's stomach, Guy burst through the concrete wall, leaving a huge hole behind him. Well, I've got to admit I'm impressed. After completing a spinning kick, Kakashi knocked two of his allies into the seats by knocking one of the enemies in front of him. He ignored the one approaching from behind and crossed his arms. Behind the cunning ninja, Naruto appeared and stabbed him through the back. Guy slammed the final one into the concrete head first. The three that Kakashi had pushed back were gathering strength and forming a wide arc to confront the trio. Naruto, behind you. As the boy attempted to slash, he spun around and took a palm strike to his chest. As Kakashi and Guy easily dispatched the final three opponents, a nin wearing an Anbu mask emerged. He smiled at the two and removed his mask. All right. Things don't seem to be going according to plan. Kabuto was the one. The espionage agent slightly raised his glasses on the bridge of his nose. Kakashi gave a nod. You shouldn't be surprised. Kabuto laughed a little. I guess not. Upon encountering the enemy, plans typically fail. You ought to understand that boy will not survive. He can be killed by the sound for more than once. Guy smiled, his teeth flashing. Konoha's youthful energy and strength will not be easily broken. What do you want to achieve? The spies gave a headshake. Me? Nothing, I'm done playing this game. Our forces are currently attacking the village, the third will perish and our hopes come true. He threw his cloak at the two who were obscuring his vision. He was gone when it landed. Kakashi kicked the cloak that had fallen. Slippery one. Guy gave a nod. Observe. There's danger to the Hokage. Come on. We must leave quickly. The two ran to the edge of the arena and leapt over it. Naruto dashed into the arena's forested section. There were 4 nin encircling him when he skidded to a stop. A large man with a mohawk, a slim man with gray hair, a red-headed kunoichi, and a dark-haired man with a short ponytail were visible when they threw away their cloaks. It was the woman who spoke. Oh. Punk fucking. To kill this little piece of trash, the 4 of us? The man with gray hair laughed. That will be fun for us. But it is a little excessive, I must say. The big nin snarled. Enough already. I'm famished. Upon realizing he was in trouble, Naruto turned to face the 4 of them, who had cornered him. Shit. The biggest one placed his hands on the floor. Earth prison dome of magnificent nothingness. A dome of earth encircled the boy as he laughed. With a lumbering gait, he placed his hands on the wall. Yummy. Jirobo. You fat fuck. The redhead appeared irritated. Tayuya, please stop talking. Why do you have to be so harsh? With a scowl, he continued to hold his hands on the dome. The nin with gray hair snorted. That was a useless gesture. Go ahead and drain him. After you're done, I want to play with him. When I kill him, leave that little piece of trash feeling something. The man with dark hair crossed his arm. Why do we waste time on this low quality garbage, Sachin? There isn't time for this. Our time was wasted on it. It seems like I'm slogging through level 1 garbage. Kill him already. We need to go somewhere else. Glancing back over her shoulder, the redhead saw Sarutobi and Orochimaru. I hate to admit it, but that fucking basement-dwelling pimple farm Kitamaru is right. He gave her a fierce look. Hey. I'm not Pimple. Ridden, you're a mean person. With a snort, Tayuya folded her arm. How much can you eat, geez? Get on it quickly. With a mouth that size, how can you possibly take so long to finish a meal? Stop battling. It's our duty as a team. Jiburo seemed to focus a little more on what he was doing and let out a growl. Something is off. Nothing is reaching me. They heard a voice coming from a nearby tree branch. I believe that you guys were meant to murder me. All you're doing is standing around a massive mound of dirt, gagging at each other. By now, I could have escaped. The group turned to face the hooded nin that was hiding on a branch not far from them. Tayuya gave him a scowl. You'll regret that you didn't run now. Sakin laughed. Hey. He sure is cunning, isn't he? With a hop, the hooded nin ran deeper into the small grove. Catch me if you can, idiots. Kitamaru followed suit. Get back here, you little punk. Naruto laughed from inside the earth's dome, listening in on what was happening outside. Inside the dome's walls was a chakra field of sorts that seemed to be reaching out to draw something from within him. Sensing its disappearance, he began his ninjutsu. The dome collapsed a moment later. I was sure I had him. Jiburo pounded his fist into his palm and glared at the empty space. Stupid. How could you have missed that irritating trash? Tayuya appeared repulsed. Sakin looked over at her. You didn't notice him getting away either. The girl gave her a scowl. Fuck it, let's find him before that dumbass Kitamaru loses him too. Not one of them saw the invisible boy disappear into the arena from behind the trees. He had lost one clone with Kakashi and Guy, but there were still 3 clones sculling around the stands. He had about 5 clones total. For as long as he could, he intended to keep the sound nin chasing their own tails. Gazing at the scene from outside the village, Ryu's eyes narrowed. He and Ken were standing on a tree branch, surveying the scene from above. They had Kurama and Masara seated next to them. Ken held Naruto's son in his arms. Ken cast a sidelong glance. To indicate when it's safe to return, send out a green flare. Send a red one if I have to leave because the situation is too dire. Ryu nodded gravely. I'll return to the village and try my best. It's a mess right now. 3 enormous snakes were tearing down one of the walls, and there were numerous forces storming the walls, causing forces to pour in through the damage. Ken gave a nod. You will remain in my home. If there is an issue, I want to make sure I have someone watching Kitsune while I take care of it. He gave Masara a look. Kurama raised an eyebrow at Ryu. You're going to find the boss? The man gave a headshake. First, I'm going to lend a hand a little in the village. Naruto ought to be alright. Although he is well trained, I intend to locate him before this is through. The Kitsune gave a nod. I'll accompany you. Proceed without me. I'm heading to the woods to pick up some friends. He turned to face his friend. Take care, Masara. Verify the prince's safety. I'll dispatch someone to ensure the boss is well. Being as well. The 3 tails nodded with serious expressions. Obviously. They will not locate us. Kurama and Ryu leapt from their perch and made their way into the village. Ken gave Masara a quick glance. Well? The fox displayed his tongue. Just waiting here will be fine. I have no trouble hiding us with my illusions. Glancing back over his shoulder, the shinobi peered into the woods beyond them. Maybe it's not a good idea. I've been trained to blend in. I'm supposed to comprehend that certain nin here are capable of sensing that kind of thing. Masara laughed. Nope. My name is Kitsune. With my kind, it's not the same kind of thing. We shall be alright. You see, I haven't lived for nothing in 400 years. It's not genjutsu, the kind of nin used for such things, so no nin can sense one of my illusions. Natural chakra and everything, no issues. His partner appeared to become slightly more at ease. All right. Please pardon me if I continue to be cautious. The fox took a seat. Yes. No offense intended. From the man's arms, Kitsune gave a little whimper and looked out towards the village. Masara's eyes met his. Prince, don't worry about it. The boss will be alright. With a laugh, he peered at the forest floor. Below, there was a lot going on. Hey. It ought to be enjoyable. I apologize a little for missing it. He used his back leg to scratch at his ear. At least we've got a good view from up here. Sarutobi distanced himself from his erstwhile pupil. He threw off his robe and hat to reveal a black ninja uniform and helmet. You don't act out of pure retaliation. You don't have any objectives. What is it that you're after? What role does young Sasuke play in this? Orochimaru appeared happy. Ah, to fight you again. As the two charged at each other, the Hokage threw one shuriken and used his hands to execute a jutsu. Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Hundreds of them were flying in the direction of his opponent when he was done. Orochimaru also completed his jutsu. In front of him, two coffins erupted from the earth. No. I must take action regarding the third. He tried to cancel the jutsu with his hands. Hey. They protected him from the shuriken's onslaught. Out of them, only two were able to emerge. The boxes opened and Sarutobi slid to a stop in front of them. Oh my god. These two, out of all the people he would call upon. As soon as the two boxes opened, Orochimaru laughed. Two lifeless men emerged from them. Long white hair on one, long dark hair on the other. The elderly man's eyes narrowed. The first and second Hokage. What's going on? Hokage. A group of nin with masks, dressed in black and gray uniforms and carrying swords on their backs, descended upon him. As they talked, they seemed aware of what was happening and spoke in an alarming tone. The village is under attack. Orochimaru. Sarutobi looked about him. Remain back. Everyone among you. I'm fighting for this. Both of the bodies spoke to him as he was looking at them. Well, it's been a long time, monkey? The second appeared to be laughing. Sarutobi, you've grown old. He was also greeted by the first. The elderly man nodded. It is unfortunate. I never imagined seeing the two of you in this world. Kindly get ready to be defeated. Taking out two kunai that had jutsu notes attached, Orochimaru pressed them up against the necks of the two dead people. Hey. Give up talking about the elderly people. A black blur raced between him and the two as he leapt back and skidded across the dirt. Hey ugly, watch your step. With a sly smile, Naruto placed his sword on his back. Uzumaki? How are you spending your time? Sarutobi appeared taken aback. Orochimaru heard a switch click beneath his foot and froze. What? Raising his arms to protect himself, the Hokage became a blur as a massive explosion sent the two bodies flat on their faces and the coffins tumbling away on either side of him. After approaching Naruto from behind, the serpent nin stabbed the clone in the back, breaking the jutsu. Those moron. By now, he ought to be dead. Get him. The Anbu charged in the direction of the serpent man. You'll all die. Orochimaru turned to look at them and growled. Get back. After slamming a long, thick pole into his face and sending him sprawling across the dirt on his back, Sarutobi materialized in front of his former student. The Anbu turned to glare at him as he froze. Enter the village now. Keep Konoha safe. I'll take care of this. I remain Hokage, and he surpasses all of you. Orochimaru gave the two bodies a glare. What are you doing? Assail him. The first folded his arms. Why should we? He took a step back, putting some distance between the fight and himself. The second followed suit, nodding. I concur. We have no desire to fight my former student, but we also cannot harm the one who called for us. The sound nin held the notes in his hands and glanced at the two kunai. No. That prick, he. He gave the elderly man a fierce look, his eyes hardening. The two animated bodies were dispersed so far apart that it would be nearly impossible to catch them both while fighting Sarutobi. Damn it. Genma felt the shock of a nearby explosion as he looked over his shoulder and winced a little. What the? He smiled. Anbu. Fantastic. A sand nin was diving for the man when Sasuke shoved him aside and thrust a kunai forward, cutting the man almost in half. Be careful. Be mindful of this. Sakura leaned closer to Lee. Kai. The boy opened his eyes when she gave him a gentle tap on the back with her fingers. What? What took place? Salutations. He attempted to take her hands as he flushed. She jerked them away, the girl. Not right now. There is an attack on the village. The boy had a shocked expression. What? An enemy nin materialized behind him, and he dodged, falling forward with a long needle stuck in his throat. Genma took another one out of his pocket and gave Sakura a scowl. Would you please just speed it up? It's becoming a little busy. He turned to face the arena's woods. There's something going on in there as well. There was a tremendous roar coming from the trees, and some dust was seen blowing up from the tops. What the hell? Shikamaru was kicked in the ribs by Sasuke. Hey. Why are you just lying there, anyway? The boy sat up, looking annoyed, and grunted painfully. He rubbed his head. I wanted to avoid being attacked. Anyway, what's going on? Ten was rubbing the back of her head, appearing confused and dazed, next to Sakura as she patted Shoji on the back. The big boy awoke, sat up, scowled, and grunted. Genma surveyed the group. Go on, please. Konoha, you are all being attacked. The village is going to be attacked by the combined forces of the Sand and Sound Nin. All of the group, save for Sakura and Sasuke, appeared shocked. Sakura turned to face the woods and scowled. Everyone is like that. Hurry up. Naruto. A Sound Nin materialized in front of the girl to be attacked, and Lee hooked his foot across his jaw. The group was surrounded by 4 more. Shikamaru scowled. Looks like we've got problems of our own. A long, icky line of sticky fluid shot by right in front of Naruto, who leapt over it. Fantastic. I have to stop doing this soon. The kunoichi was stepping back, her hands holding a flute. Don't let him get away. She began to play the instrument by bringing it to her lips. The youthful ninja dodged as one of the trio of massive demons she had just called forth struck a powerful club above his head, smashing it against a tree and causing it to topple over. Shit. Their mouths and eyes were stitched shut. Just before his rear hit the dust, he pushed back with his feet and turned over. The nin with gray hair appeared in front of him. My, you're a slippery one. With a fist, he struck out, sending the boy flying back. As he flew past, the fat one attempted to grab him out of the air, but he disappeared as his hand closed around his head. Jirobo snarled. What? An ethereal duplicate? Snapping, Tayuya withdrew the pipe from her lips. What? That garbage, he has been. Her eyes turned bloodshot, and her eyebrows started to twitch. Sakin balled his hand. He's been running us around in circles. Kidamaru cast a sidelong glance. This is not good. Orochimaru is meant to be behind a barrier that we are building. It's not even really him, and we've been chasing this trash through the woods for far too long already. Sakin snarled. When I find the trash, I'm going to tear him apart. Where on earth is he? Perched on a nearby tree branch materialized another of the hooded nin. Aren't you curious to know? Hey. A golden spike, resembling the web lines that now hung throughout the forest, was spit out by Kidamaru. It scattered after stabbing the clone in the chest. *T. He's teasing us with his games. Tayuya scowled. I'm going to screw him. Just remember to keep your assholes out of my way. She froze, bringing the pipe to her lips. Wha? Her eyes got really big. She held a stick on which it appeared that a kunai had been used to shave off the bark. There was still a tiny leaf. Adorned branch sticking out of the side. No. She turned to face the demon summons, which was now motionless. After swinging down from the branch above her head, Naruto landed on the branch she had been on with both feet planted in her back. She struck Jirobo in the skull with her head and fell face first into the dirt. It had hurt a little, and the big man looked annoyed. Tayuya did not stand up again. Tayuya. No. He glared up at the boy, appearing worried about her. You. The nin with the hood laughed. Looks like she lost something. As he turned to jump away, he became entangled in a web. He just hung there, watching as Kidamaru crawled across his own web to come smile at him. He had a furious expression. Crap. Looking at the nin who had caught him in the web, or rather, behind him, Naruto became a little wide-eyed. Kidamaru. How on earth are you acting? Another head popped out of Saken's back as he gripped a kunai. Along with another arm that was holding a kunai out of his back, it was staring behind him. This isn't funny. Jirobo stumbled back, clenching his fists as he peered fearfully into the surrounding shadows. What are you doing? The nin with dark hair cast a bewildered glance over his shoulder. WH. What the hell? A massive black spider, easily 4 feet wide, was crawling in his direction. It had a red hourglass under its belly. He turned to face the ninja in the hood. You. He rolled over, punching the creature away from him as he fell into the dirt as it pounced on his back. In a cloud of smoke, the clone on his web disappeared. Skittering to his feet, the spider nin went to join his friends. Tayuya sat up and screeched in alarm, letting out a moan. The sound 4 were being approached by roughly 5 of the enormous spiders. Awful, disgusting. Kidamaru, remove this. The man appeared irritated. They aren't mine. Jirobo used his fist to knock one away as it approached. It struck the side of a tree, toppled over to crawl back towards them, and fell on its back. Saken used his kunai to strike another one. It lost its head and screamed before becoming motionless. What's this all about? From where did they originate? The killed spider disappeared, and the other spiders began to retreat. Little spheres of fire started to emerge around the 4 sound nin in the grove's shadows. They were stooped over each other, staring around in disbelief. Tayuya snarled. Perhaps a form of genjutsu? This garbage, who the fuck is it? Spitting another golden spike and impaling one of the creatures, Kidamaru snarled. I think I get why Orochimaru sent all 4 of us after him. He stepped back, letting out a painful scream. Jirobo gave a gasp. Traps. A metal game trap had snapped around the shin of the spider nin. Once more, the hooded nin stood in front of them, his sword aimed directly at each of them. Furious, Saken let out a scream and lunged at him, holding a kunai. Die. He was reached for by Kidamaru. No. You moron. After the boy took the hit, Saken stabbed him in the chest. The man had his kunai stabbed through an explosive note stuck on the side of the tree, and his eyes widened upon realizing it was just another clone. Shit. It blew up, sending him rolling away as he struck the dirt. The kunai she had used to stab the note went straight through Hirobo's shoulder and lodged in a tree trunk behind him, causing him to scream in agony. Dropping to his knees, he grasped the wound. Leave the trees. Quickly. Strange howling could be heard from all around them, and glowing eyes could be seen filling the shadowy grove all around them. Their dull glow was accompanied by small floating balls of blue flame that hovered between them, not really casting any light on the surroundings. Kidamaru gave a growl. He would pry his leg free of the trap, then spit some of the liquid from his mouth over his wound. Hallucinations? What is this? Tayuya appeared frightened. I lost my weapon. I am utterly incapable. We must go now. Saken snarled. He had multiple burns on his face and arm, as well as a few wood splinters embedded in his flesh. Do you have any idea what will happen to us if we don't kill him? Even though his wounds were not severe, he was clearly in pain. Kidamaru gave him a quick look. This is absurd. How is that amount of trash possible? In the middle of the group, he was limping. The eyes were shifting in relation to the shadows cast by the tree trunks surrounding them. Tayuya returned her to him. There must be a trick involved here. Some sort of genjutsu. Saken turned to face the grove's edge. Leave this place now. Right now. It's taking far too long. It is our duty to erect that barrier in Orochimaru's honor. They all ran after him as quickly as they could. Kidamaru looked over his shoulder with a snarl. Jirobo scowled. Hold on. The curse shuts. We cannot yet give up. Are you aware of the consequences in the event that we fail? Tayuya scowled at him. You need to pull this garbage out of these woods, you fat coward. He has far too much fucking control over this situation. Do you not realize that we have fallen victim to a swindle of some kind? Retrace your steps. Kidamaru gave her a sneer. You're just saying that because you've lost your toy. Saken moaned. She's right, I hate to say it, but we're just chasing clones in this place. We must confront this trash because it appears to be a genjutsu user. Sarutobi was using the staff to deflect blows when Orochimaru slashed at it. He was perspiring and had extracted a sword from his mouth while keeping his opponent on the defensive. Damn. The Hokage smiled at him. Having a bit of trouble? Not really. Orochimaru laughed artificially. Just a bit more work than I had anticipated. The two leapt to the side and threw kunai and shuriken, which were all thrown from the air. The elderly man gave a nod. It seems like your plan isn't working out? You didn't think the Leaf Village would cause you this much trouble. We surpass your expectations in strength. His former pupil gave him a snarl and a growl. I'm not leaving empty-handed. Sakura watched the fighting from above alongside Genma and the other genin. What should we do? Around them lay a number of dead enemy nin. Grandma scowled. All we can do is obstruct the situation here. It appears that each of you can manage yourself fairly well. Let's head toward the village, please. Lee scowled. How about the Hokage? There's danger for him. With a quick glance, Sasuke returned his attention to the battle. I think he seems fine. The pair of enlisted zombies are merely standing apart from it. 10-10 gave a nod. I don't think that's worth our time. We'll improve the village more. Turning, Sasuke headed for the door. All right. Come on. He was pulled off the edge by a large fist that emerged from behind the railing and grabbed him by the back of his head. Without pausing to consider her options, Sakura leapt over the railing in a blur. Sasuke. A fist slammed into her gut as she struck the wall and then the floor. A gray-haired nin with his fist in her stomach gave her a startled look and caused her to spit out some blood. Gazing down at the scene, Genma saw a dark-haired nin with a ponytail staring up at him, as well as a red-headed kunoichi. Damn it. Rock Lee jumped down, clenching his fist. Hiroshima. You are so daring. He ended up hanging by his foot from some kind of sticky cord halfway down the wall, instead of landing in the attack he'd planned. What? As he jerked down and swung away from jumping towards Saken, Kidamaru gave him a punch to the face. The young lad was hanging by a thread, holding his nose. With a laugh, Jirobo took hold of Sasuke's skull and channeled his chakra into his arm. Hey. This ought to drive that garbage out. Pain erupted across his face, causing him to lose his hold and stumble backward, causing Sasuke to land face first on the ground. Kidamaru gave a rough bounce off the wall and rolled off across the dirt. Standing where the spider nin had been, Guy had a frown on his face and his fist outstretched. Kakashi lightly landed in front of Tayuya and Saken after flipping off the fat person's face. With a downcast expression, he took hold of two kunai. Saken retreated and turned to face Tayuya, growling. Shit. Ryu was perched atop a massive snake with a behead. The ground surrounding him was covered in roughly 10 dead sound and sand nin from sword wounds. Several leaf nin stood around the area, staring up at him with wide eyes as he held a sword in his hand. After engaging in combat, 8 more enemy nin collapsed, their necks, skulls, and chests punctured by kunai. Kurama laughed. Quite an entrance. The man sighed deeply. How annoying. As he leapt over their heads and into the sun's glare above, the leaf nin observed. The light seemed to devour him, and he never did seem to land. A leaf nin in the vicinity raised his head and brought his weapon down. Who the hell was that? Beside him, a leaf kunoichi stumbled as she surveyed her surroundings. Every enemy in the area was eliminated. How absurd is that? What took place? The group gathered around the severed snake caught the attention of the three-tailed fox. All right, so. We are here to assist. With a narrowed gaze, one of the men examined the creature. We? The animal nodded at him. Yes. We. A swarm of furry orange, black, and white animals rushed around and over the body of the serpent and into the village walls as the nin staggered and looked around. A few blocks away, one of the other enormous snakes nearby collapsed, its belly rupturing open and spilling its contents onto the street. A few moments later, Nin was seen running through the streets while screaming in fear. A number of them had wounds and arrows protruding from their bodies. A few of the leaf Nin were wondering why they weren't dead as they staggered around, appearing bewildered. Gazing up at the Kitsune, the group near the severed snake saw that she had transformed into a lovely young girl dressed in a shinobi uniform. There was a forehead protector on her head that had 3 what appeared to be claw marks down the middle. From her perch overlooking the village, she smiled broadly while carrying a bow and arrow. Hey. It ought to be enjoyable. All across the village, little balls of floating blue flame started to appear in the alleys and streets. Glancing up at her, one of the Nin scowled and aimed his weapon at her. What on earth are you? Why are you in this place? Kurama laughed. We are Uzumaki Naruto's subjects. We have come to support the Kitsune king in his battle and to safeguard our prince, as well as his residents, naturally. For as long as our king and prince are secure inside this village, the Kitsune will be Konoha's allies and protectors. Isn't that pleasant? She bounced with joy and hopped up and down. Tee-hee. She put on her cutest, most adorable face and stepped through the dumbfounded Nin to join the fight. The first man to speak became a little slack-jawed, as did the other men who were with him. You. Uzumaki? Orochimaru knocked Sarutobi back with a growl. Breathless, the elderly man skidded across the dirt while clutching the staff. He was still keeping pace with his opponent despite perspiring heavily. I won't be able to keep up with this long. With a growl, the serpent man stabbed the ground with his blade. It raced toward the old man and split the earth open. The Hokage was compelled to leap forward and backward into the bleachers. Instead of going forward, Orochimaru pivoted and hurriedly approached the quartet of sound Nin engaged in combat with Guy and Kakashi. Behind the sound 4, Sasuke lay openly on the ground. Shaking his head, the leaf genin was having difficulty pushing himself onto his arms. What happened? Sasuke's eyes widened at what he saw approaching him. Orochimaru's neck extended, his head aimed directly at him. You're mine. The boy attempted to lift his arm and protect himself, but he was cut off in front of him by 2 well-known legs. Don't you touch Sasuke. Sakura unleashed a punch that struck the victim's head on the jaw, sending it flying to the side. Gasping, she stood hunched over from her blow. Orochimaru dove at her in a fit of rage. Out of my way, you little bitch. He abruptly stopped and pivoted, striking seemingly insignificant objects with his punches. With his sword falling from his hands, Naruto was hunched over the man's fist, his eyes wide. The leader of Sound lifted his arm and gave him a chest kick. 3 serpent heads shot out of his sleeve and snapped at the hooded Nin, but he was able to roll out of the way. He struggled to stay on his feet as he stood back up, but he was unable to avoid the punch that hooked across his jaw and sent him reeling back. Damn. He was knocked unconscious by the Sound Cage's vicious combination of kicks and punches as he charged at him. Naruto. Sakura began to move forward, but was sidestepped by someone 10 feet away after taking a backhand to the face. Even though he hadn't even turned to face her, Orochimaru had to halt his attack on Naruto for a brief moment in order to allow the hooded Nin to stumble back. The furious Sound Cage gave Naruto Nin a furious glare. The boy shook his head in an attempt to clear his throat as he struggled to stay on his feet. You've gotten in my way for the last time. With the intention of severing the boy's torso, he struck him with his sword. In order to block the blow, Naruto jerked the wire on his blade's hilt and caught it in time. He instantly went to his knees, grunting in a futile attempt to fight against the downward slash. The boy was nearly cut off by his opponent's blade as it came down to slash at him once more when Orochimaru's fist crashed into his stomach. He dodged the horizontal slash by jumping back, but not before taking a kick to the gut, landing again, and being flung back. He went down on his knees, hit his face, and then struggled to raise himself with his arms. The boy was coughing up blood through his mask and clutching at his stomach. Shit. He looked up, his vision blurring, and saw the serpent man lunge towards him, his blade rearing over his head. Die. Several kunai fell in Orochimaru's path, forcing him to stop and move to the side. He saw Kakashi land close by and growled. You worm. With his sword at his throat, he spun around the weapons and wrapped his arm around Naruto's neck, pulling the boy against his chest. The man was kicked in the feet and the hooded nin grabbed at his arm, choking him. Kakashi froze, crouching to wait for a chance to strike. You've dropped out. Your assault has not succeeded. The serpent man surveyed his surroundings. Kakashi had the four sounds standing behind him, and Guy was controlling them. Rock Lee was glaring at the scene from behind them, and Genma had landed next to the man to support him. With haste, Lee moved between them and slid onto his knees beside Sakura, encircling her arm around his shoulder. Sakura. Are you able to endure? He gave the evil Kage a scowl. As long as I live, you will not harm her. I vowed to do this. Naruto's feet were lifted off the ground as Orochimaru pulled him up a little higher. I won't leave without accomplishing anything. Removing the blade from the boy's throat, he held it in his hand and lifted it above his head, piercing the boy's chest with a stab. Not again. Naruto was choking and straining in his grasp. His vision was dwindling away. Orochimaru felt as though a dozen needles had been driven into his wrist, causing him to scream in agony. He let go of the sword and threw a small furry creature onto the dust in front of him with a jerky hand motion. A two-tailed Kitsune bared its teeth at him, rolled over, and growled at him before backing away and making its hair stand on end. As the sound nin leaned forward from the throw, Naruto was able to plant his feet on the ground. With a painful groan, he moved forward as forcefully as possible. Though he was able to break free from the headlock, Orochimaru's fingers ended up trapping the back of his neck. No, you don't. Just pass away. A cracking sound sounded from behind Naruto, sending him face first into the dust. As he touched down, everything went dark. That is enough. After landing, Sarutobi crossed the man's arm with his pole. As he leapt away, Orochimaru's broken arm was hanging at his side. He glared angrily at the Hokage as he turned to face them. With a wall at their back, he and his four sound nin were surrounded on all sides. Standing in front of the remaining genin were Guy, Kakashi, and Genma. They were all holding kunai and none of them appeared happy. Naruto was on the ground, his eyes closed, and Sasuke was still on his belly a few feet away. Not only that, but there were roughly 50 more nin closing in ahead of them and from the sides. Each with 3 claw marks running down the middle of an unfamiliar forehead protector. With a similar mark bearing the leaf symbol, Orochimaru glared at Naruto. I see. The new nin were closing in on the sound nin, little balls of flaming blue light floating among them, their yellow eyes glowing. They were encircled by far larger forces on all sides and backed up against the arena wall. Tayuya glanced at their master behind her. What should we do? With a growl, Orochimaru peered at the dirt. The Hokage stood waiting, his pole poised for an attack, a determined frown on his face. Now is the appropriate moment to depart. We've been unsuccessful. Orochimaru slumped over between Tayuya and Saken, who were holding him up. In an instant, a thick cloud of smoke appeared from the ground in front of them as Jirobo threw multiple balls towards the ground. As they leapt away, the leaf nin watched on. Guy sprinted after them, and Kakashi came running to support him. With his back to them, Kidomaru spit a huge, open web into the air, catching Guy mid-jump and sending him sprawled across the sticky string net on the ground. Kakashi avoided the attack because she hadn't yet leapt after him. They disappeared into the woods that surrounded the village and over the wall because it was too late. The Hokage collapsed to his knees, panting for air. Every one of the strange nin changed into a kitsune and left. While most of them had 2 or 3 tails, none of them had more than 5. With gasping for air, the elderly man gazed around, his eyes wide. What? He smirked as he turned to face Naruto's bed. I see. Kakashi looked up at the elderly man. What just happened? Guy was having trouble fitting his bonds. A hand would be nice. Sakura and Lee hurried to be by his side. The boy looked worried. Guy-sensei. Sakura was giggling as she took out her kunai and began cutting through the adhesive bonds. Slow down. He's not hurt, in my opinion. Guy scowled at her. Indeed. That does not negate the fact that it is somewhat awkward. After succeeding in rolling onto his back, Sasuke was out of breath. He appeared exhausted, with his eyes half closed. Ah. This is awful. He had Kakashi by his side. You've depleted your chakra. It's a blessing that you live. He turned to face Sakura. What was that Orochimaru tried to do? The boy with raven hair appeared irritated. How am I supposed to know? Naruto blocked his path when he attempted the same thing earlier in the forest. A number of Anbu had materialized and were assisting the Hokage in standing up. Naruto had a few more people knelt around him. The boy wasn't in imminent danger, but he was unconscious and covered in bruises. Raising his head, Sasuke let out a growl. That's the second time the guy kicked his ass. Two of the Anbu were supporting the Hokage. Indeed. His survival is fortunate. Casting a sidelong glance at the boy, he muttered to himself. He's not the only one. Glancing back, he saw the two lifeless bodies of the former Hokage lying in the ground. He scowled and closed his eyes. Please come. It's time for us to go. The exams are over. We have a significant mess to clean up. Gazing down at the two bodies that had once lay in the middle of the arena, the Hokage let out a heavy sigh. He was standing on the steps outside the complex's main entrance. Much was happening. The corpses of both adversaries and a few allies were being removed. Debris was being piled up and moved out of the way. The two fallen Hokage crumbled to dust the instant the Anbu touched them, revealing two more bodies within. They were young, a boy and girl of no older than 14, each wearing a sound forehead protector, and they said, "It is as I thought." A terrible jutsu. Dead bodies had been scattered all over the arena. The two that had previously been inside the two Hokage were the final two being executed. The majority of them had now vanished. 2 hours had passed since the end of the attack. Konoha remained somewhat in disbelief. Of the roughly 15 dead, 2 were Junin, 2 were Genin, and the remaining were Chunin. Although there had been some non-combatant casualties as well, they had been relatively light given the circumstances just a few hours prior. He was approached by a Chunin with spiky black hair and a mask. "Hokage, sir. There's something. Well, it's a bit unusual." Taking one look at him, the elderly man scowled. "Yes. What is it?" The nin turned his head, and a third man stood between the two approaching men. The boy appeared to be around 14 years old, had strange gauntlets on his hands, and was gloomy but not aggressive. His face was wrapped in a way that only showed one eye, and he was only wearing a black shirt and pants. He did not have a forehead protector on. As he was held in front of the elderly man, he turned to face the ground. The boy received a nod from the Chunin. He's not resisted. Turning to face the boy, Sarutobi peered at the leaf nin. "Who is he?" The individual shrugged. "We don't know, sir. Witnesses say, he came with the attackers, but turned on them immediately, fighting against the sand and sound. He's not one of ours, and he's not wearing anything that identifies him with a village." Several nin claim he helped out several leaf nin. He was glanced at by the Hokage. "I see. Tell me, wait. I know you. You were in the Chunin exam." With a nod, the boy lowered his head. He remained silent. At the young nin, the Chunin scowled. "If you're going to speak up, now is the time." With one eye, the boy glanced up at the Hokage. "I would like to seek asylum." The elderly man gave him a scowl. "You are one of the sound nin. One of Orochimaru's." The young nin was dejected. "Yes. I was." He was brought by a Chunin, who scowled. "If you're willing to turn against your own, why should we take you in?" He received a glare from the boy. "I'm not one of them anymore. That bastard killed my team." I knew they were going to attack, so I came here, but I didn't make it in time to warn anyone, so I did what I could. I couldn't get to him, he killed my friends for some sort of sacrifice. I barely escaped with my life. I can still remember the screams. Kin. Zaku. He looked at the Hokage with tears streaming across his face. I will tell you everything I know. I will submit to any interrogation, willingly. Just. The elderly man averted his gaze. The men carrying the boy stopped carrying him to the carts where they would be disposed of and said, "Come with me." "You, hold for a moment." The Hokage walked down the stairs to two covered stretchers and the men holding the boy moved behind him. His gaze shifted to the Chunin cradling him. "Release him." The men moved away from the boy's side, looking surprised. The men removing the bodies were halted by the Hokage. He removed enough of the sheets to reveal their faces. "These two. They were your friends?" The boy was in front of him on his knees, the chains that bound him clattering on the sidewalk as his hands hung between his legs. "How did they get here?" "I thought they were," he said, looking up at the elderly man. Zaku. Kin. No." He felt a hand on his shoulder from the Hokage. "They were. Orochimaru sacrificed them to perform a forbidden jutsu in an attempt to take my life." "Tell me your name, boy." "Dosu. Kinuta Dosu." The elderly man nodded. He looked the boy in the eye and said, "Remove his chains. You will be under guard, and I'm afraid we will be watching you carefully." Dosu gave a nod. "I understand. I will do whatever I can. I will avenge them, I swear it. That monster. He told us we could be strong, that we would have better lives. Our future, it was supposed to be full of promise, honor, and glory. Not this." The Hokage frowned deeply as he nodded. "I can promise you nothing of revenge. Orochimaru is a wanted man, and we will of course defeat him if we can. However, we cannot seek war. The Sand. They are dangerous enemies. I fear for Kazekage, he is not the kind of man who would allow another to take his place for such a deception. He would have faced us himself before he allowed." Looked up at him, Dosu. "Kazekage is dead. This much I know. Orochimaru murdered him. I do not know the details. I overheard Kabuto, his right hand, speak of this while we were preparing for the exams. The hidden sand was deceived, and did not know the one they obeyed was not their cage." Sarutobi's scowl got bigger. "I see. I will have you speak with some of the Anbu. If you cooperate, you will have nothing to fear from them. Do not worry. You seem willing, and I do not wish you to fear if this is true. However, I hope you understand that this must be verified." The boy hung his head and nodded. The two Chunin helped the boy to his feet and released his chains. "I will submit to anything, if it will help me avenge my comrades. Given my life for Sound and its ambitions, I would have died fighting for him gladly, but this cannot be forgiven." The elderly man watched the two corpses being carried away by the men as they led him away from the Hokage. Baki scowled as he walked over to his team's 3 genin. Between Kankuro and Temari, Gaara lay on his back with a blanket covering him. The man approached the boy and scowled down at him. "How is he?" The boy's sister wiped a cool, damp cloth across his forehead and looked up at him. "His wounds are almost gone. The bleeding has stopped. He'll recover." With his arms crossed, Kankuro cast a downward glance at his brother. He appeared agitated and uneasy, saying, "I've never seen him like this before." His side effects seemed to have faded for now. Baki knelt by Gaara's side and nodded. "Can you move? We cannot linger here. The attack has failed, and I fear the leaf will recover quickly. We need to leave this country and return our own as fast as possible. If we are caught, it will be dangerous." Kankuro appeared taken aback. "What?" Temari's fist clenched. "What do you mean?" The ninja dressed in kabuki scowled down at his sibling. "Great. That means we've got to carry him." The boy frowned deeply as he looked up at him. "Leave me." Temari let out a gasp. "No way." Her brother looked in her direction. What do you care? Kankuro gave a headshake. She's right. We can't just leave you here. We're not that bad off, and you're not dead. You'll be fine with a little more rest. When Baki raised the sheet to examine his wounds, all that was visible were a few scabs on his shoulders. He's right. Gaara, we do not leave our own behind. The boy trembled, his face drenched in perspiration. I'm not one of you. Tamari gave him a glare. I'd slap you if I wasn't afraid of losing one of my hands for it. Gaara sat up as if he was having a cramp, and he shook and clutched at his belly, making Tamari and Kankuro jump back in alarm. Squeezing his eyes shut, he grasped his head. Shut the hell up. Baki grunted a little. Come on. Kankuro, I'll carry Karasu for a short while, you're going to need to carry Gaara. The boy backed away, looking shocked. Me? What about her? Tamari gave him a scowl. Shut up. He's your brother too. I'll take him if I have to. Baki gave a headshake. He turned to face Kankuro and said, shut up, both of you. We don't have time to argue. You're used to carrying around that puppet of yours. Gaara doesn't weigh that much more. I'll carry Karasu, but if I've got to fight, I'd rather drop it than him. He glanced at Tamari. You're going to scout ahead for us. You're a lot more nimble than him. The girl frowned at Kankuro, then nodded and lowered her eyes. You be careful, and don't be an asshole. As his brother reached down to grab him, Gaara growled. Leave me. Kankuro was trembling slightly. Just deal with it for a bit. I don't like this either, you know. The redhead averted his gaze. Why do you care? Just dump me here, I'll be fine on my own. He appeared to be somewhat uncomfortable, though not as much as he would have if he hadn't been hurt. Kankuro sighed deeply. I can't. You heard Baki. His younger sibling gave him a quick glance. Why not? Because it was an order? I'll kill you. The elder boy clenched his jaw. Why do you have to always be like this? That's not it at all. He reached for him again, but Gaara slapped his hand away. Why not? I'm telling you to leave me the hell alone. Baki gave the boy a scowl. He can't. The younger brother appeared to be getting dangerously upset. Kankuro appeared to be about ready to urinate. Yeah, he can. What do you care? Baki gave a headshake. I don't. You don't understand, do you? He can't leave you here. It's not because I gave him an order. The elder boy took hold of his younger sibling's hand. Come on, Gaara, please. You might be fine here, but it's dangerous for the rest of us. Ignoring him, his younger brother turned to face his teacher. Why? Tell me then. The man sighed deeply. Because even though you might kill him, and he knows it, you're still his brother. Tamari appeared anxious. Don't kill him, Gaara, please. Really, you've lost a lot of blood. Sitting up, her younger brother briefly rested on her shoulder as he struggled to get to his feet. I'm fine. He nearly fell on his face, but Kankuro grabbed hold of him. Just for a bit. We won't tell anyone, I promise. Gaara gave him a glare. I don't have family. Baki received Karasu from his elder brother. You don't get to pick your family, Gaara. Come on. Believe me, I'm the last one who wants to say anything about this, and I know Tamari knows better. His younger sibling averted his gaze. It had been so much blood that he had never felt so weak before, but he said, fine. Although he had killed many people in the past, he had never seen so much from the dead. He felt his older brother grab his legs as he put his hands around Kankuro's shoulders. If any of you ever says anything about this, I'll kill you. Kankuro sighed deeply. I don't like this either, you know. We're both boys. It's embarrassing for me too. Baki gave the three a scowl. That's enough talking. We need to stay quiet, we're going to have a bit of trouble if we get caught before Gaara is healed. It seems that won't take long. I was afraid we'd have to carry him back all the way. He's never been injured at all before, but but it seems even if he is, he'll heal quickly. One injury like that wouldn't have been so bad, but there were huge holes in both his arms, he lost a lot of blood. It seems as if he should be able to move on his own tomorrow. We'll be out of the country by the next day. Temari looked back at Kankuro with concern. Yeah. Lucky us. Baki smiled slightly at her. More than it first seemed. It's not so bad, we'll survive if we're careful. Gaara appeared to have fainted, with his eyes closed. Temari nodded. She turned away, failing to see the injured boy open his eyes again. Yeah. Maybe you're right. He's so peaceful when he sleeps. Wish he'd be more like that when he's awake. Only one tear trickled down his cheek. Nor did Kankuro notice it. Once more, Gaara shut his eyes and pondered inwardly. No one could answer him, and his weakness led him into darkness as he passed out. Why? I don't understand. Why can't they just leave me here? I wouldn't have cared if any of them had died. They all know it. I might have even killed them myself. So, why? He said. Naruto stood staring out over the devastation with a frown on his face as Konoha was in disarray. He was standing by the academy's fountain, gazing out onto the city from the balcony. He had Kitsune perched on his shoulder. As he approached Ken, Ryu said, "Well, that wasn't so bad." Ken laughed. Yes. It was quite a show. Naruto appeared a little taken aback. He had never seen them both out in the open. Both of them still had on their masks and black hoods. Hey, I appreciate you taking care of him. He gave his son a head rub. Ryu nodded. It's not a problem. We get paid for babysitting just like you used to. The Hokage pays us the same as Genin, even though we won't be taking missions. We're not village nin. Ken leaned in close to the guardrail. Free room is nice too. We like simple and don't need much. The student nodded to them. Yeah. That's good to hear. You guys are just standing out in the open? Ryu laughed. We told you before. Being invisible is nice, but you can't cut ties to the world completely. You'll forget what you fight for, and that's not living. It's just looking in, from the outside, detached and cold. We'll be taking a few odd jobs around town from time to time as well. While you're on a mission, we'll be watching over your son. We've got to help with some of the cleanup tomorrow. Masara and Kurama bounded up to the boy, assuming female personas. The majority of the foxes that had visited the village to help had gone back into the forest. Hey! They exclaimed together, sounding like a pair of adorable schoolgirls. More subtly, a third girl, about their age, with violet hair pulled back in a ponytail, was approaching from behind them. Hello, boss. Naruto gave a startled blink. Oh. He took a moment to sniff the air. Hey. You're the one who helped me in the arena. Right? Kurama gave off an air of surprise. Yeah. Her name is Kira. Masara appeared equally perplexed. How can you tell? The boy reddened slightly. He scratched the back of his head and gave Kira a little bow. My nose is better than a normal person's. Seems to have gotten a little better recently. Thanks. I owe you my life. The Kitsune woman blushed slightly. Why? Yes. I'm glad to have helped. With a quick yip from the boy's shoulder, Kitsune gave her a slightly redder flush. Masara gave him a rib. Cracking elbow. You know. She's a real girl. Kurama approached and whispered in his ear, nodding. We could ask her to come by later in. Well. She won't mind mating with you. Naruto snarled. Quit it, would you? I'm married already and stuff. It's bad enough as it is. You perverts. Kira raised an eyebrow slightly. Married? Kurama turned to face her. Yeah. He doesn't get it yet. Masara nodded gravely. He's still just a kid himself. Don't worry. The woman nodded, looking a little perplexed. Oh. Well, I just wanted to meet you. If you decide you want to have sex with me, I don't mind. Naruto's face flushed. He turned to face Kurama, looking both irritated and afraid. Are all of you like this? He asked. The Kitsune gave a nod. Yeah. Pretty much. Kira got a shrug from Masara. He'll appreciate it when he's older. He's not had pubes yet. Naruto was hunched over with his head hanging. Ryu and Ken were laughing at the scene. With a nod, the female Kitsune turned away. Her voice sounded timid and quiet as she spoke. Well, when he starts having erections, just let me know. You said he only likes females, right? Kurama gave a nod. Yeah. That's what he said anyway. Man. This sucks. Look, isn't she going to get mad about this? I mean, I'm supposed to be. Both Kurama and Masara shot him blank looks. You just don't get it, do you? Naruto gave him a sour look. No. Explain it. Kurama gave a shrug. Well, pretty much any one of us will do anything you want us to. She's in charge and all, but being king has perks. Masara tapped her hands against her chest. Yeah. Perks. Naruto just kept giving them both the creeps. What? Kurama sighed deeply. We've tried every innuendo I can think of. I think he's too stupid to get it unless we just tell him straight. Masara appeared to consider it and nodded. Okay. How should we put it? The redhead gave him a smile. Kitsune aren't like people. Any one of us would be more than happy to have sex with you. We'll look like anyone you want, anything you want, and no, the queen won't get even a little bit mad about it. Well, not as long as you keep her happy when she gets here. The girl with green hair nodded gravely. Yeah. We're pretty liberated when it comes to that sort of thing. With tears streaming down their faces from laughter so intense, Ken and Ryu were leaning over the railing. Naruto kept staring at them, just standing there with his shoulders hanging. Kitsune was bouncing up and down around his feet, happy. Clapping. Huh? The redhead appeared somewhat perplexed. I'm not sure we can put it any simpler than that. The girl with green hair shrugged. Yeah. Well, if you want to help your friends get laid, you can just ask and we can help with that too. None of us would mind. With a single nod, Naruto knelt to retrieve Kitsune. I'm going home. I think I'll pass on that. Really? Masara smiled at him. Okay. Don't forget though. When you start having erections, we'll be around. Kurama gave a nod. Yeah. We know you prefer females, but a lot of us have had human mates before. It's kind of a nice way to spend a week or so for fun sometimes. We live for hundreds of years after all, and it helps to have a bit of variety. We understand and all, but we can just get Kira, and she'll take care of it for you. The girl with three tails nodded. Yeah. Don't worry about it and all. To be honest, it would probably be better for you if you already know what you're doing when the queen shows up. She's not going to want to bother with teaching you all this stuff. The redhead with four tails sighed slightly. Maybe we shouldn't have told him we were really guys? Oh well. I'm sure Kira will take care of it for us. With a confused and somewhat pale appearance, Naruto shuffled off. Kitsune was curled up in his arms, appearing content and at ease as he protruded his tongue. As he played, he yipped at his father and used his teeth to pull on his shirt. Ryu continued to laugh. Man, that was great. Ken wiped tears from his eyes and nodded. Yeah. She asked you to make sure of that too, did she? Masara gave a nod. Yes. It is our duty to confirm. Although he is incredibly strong, she is probably much stronger than he is at this moment. Kurama let out a little sigh. Yes, without a doubt. To be sure, he will need some training. If not, he will be extremely sore for a very long time, but he won't die. Masara trembled. Yes. She's reportedly quite a handful. The redhead appeared to concur. Yes. He will undoubtedly require those clones of his. Ken and Ryu had a little too big of eyes. Ken raised his voice. Sounds like quite a woman. Kurama gave a nod. Yes. Her choice of mate is somewhat unusual, as she has never taken a human. The majority of our species engages in it at least once or twice, and occasionally we even marry humans for around 40 or 50 years. Not very often, though. Even though the queen appears to despise people, she allows us to enjoy ourselves occasionally. Masara appeared to concur. Yes. We may be disruptive, but we're not her. She would be a pretty nasty monster to a human. We are all a little taken aback by the king. She has never enjoyed a human being for anything other than a meal. He's got a certain something. Kurama's eyes went a little blank. She has never talked about a human being the way she did about him. She sent us here, so we haven't seen her since, but this one is unique. Ryu gave a nod. We'd noticed. Ken concurred. Indeed. The village, I believe, is beginning to notice as well. The rarest of men is Naruto. The three tails appeared perplexed. What? How do you mean? Kurama raised his voice, grinning. A life such as his will typically turn a man toward evil and darkness. They turn into the most evil men. It's only made the boss even more honorable. His understanding of suffering and isolation has taken a surprising turn. Benevolence and compassion. Both Ryu and Ken nodded. The four tails gave them a quick look. Although maybe not exactly the same, you two are not that dissimilar. You two are very wise for such young creatures. He is well taught by you. Masara seemed quite serious and nodded thoughtfully. Indeed. I understand what you're saying. There are a lot of amazing men here, but even the Hokage finds this place peculiar. That man from the academy too, his instructor. We're not always as stupid as we seem. Kurama gave the two shinobi a quick look. We both recall the period of time before this village was founded. We frequently act much older than we actually are. It's entertaining, but even in this place full of strong men, where I've seen more noble people and people with kind hearts than in a long time, there's still darkness. With his arms crossed, Ryu peered out over the village. We saw what you mean. Ken gave a nod of approval. Indeed. When he was younger, Naruto did not receive good care. While it is true that it strengthened him in unanticipated ways, that does not alter it. Kurama gave a nod. Indeed. That exists, but that's not what I mean to say. There are men here whose hearts and minds are controlled by hatred, greed, ambition, and cruelty. We all have dark sides to our personalities. We are not all joyful and lighthearted. As hunters and carnivores, we don't always enjoy men for their own sake. We can be monsters at times, tricksters at times, and helpful at times. Our mood and the man we are interacting with both play a role. Masara appeared to concur. Indeed. We'll keep our word. We will defend and safeguard this village, but only as long as it serves our interests. Above all, the king, the prince, and our queen are the objects of our loyalty. Kurama grinned darkly at the rooftops and laughed. Indeed. We will do whatever the king asks of us, provided he abides by the conditions of his contract. It would be prudent for the Konoha village to keep this in mind. He regarded the two men in hoods standing next to him. Konoha might not realize how foolish it would be to turn against him. He has no such restrictions, but the queen cannot harm the village or make us do it for her. The girl with green hair scowled at it. I worry about the potential consequences of their stupidity when the queen comes back. They won't likely welcome her with open arms, but if they make her leave, they should take him along. We shall be completely disloyal to this location. We are under no legal obligation to refrain from harming them if they enrage us. She cannot command us to do harm to this place because the prince and the boss keep us in check, but if they disappear, then well. It is up to us what we do. The redhead kept flashing that sinister smile on the place. Indeed. That, I regret, is accurate. Thus far, I'm liking it here. Hopefully, they won't do something stupid like upset him or leave him behind. Even though the contract keeps the queen from hurting the people he loves or the village as a whole, it would be a bad idea to play with her. Everyone he doesn't regard as a friend is up for grabs. Ryu nodded. Why are you telling us this? Ken gave a nod. I kind of concur. Regarding this place, we are largely in agreement. Right now, Naruto serves as our connection. Although I like the Hokage, we would now follow him if he went. Kurama gave Masara a quick glance before they both turned to leave. It could be prudent to let them know about this. Maybe not to the village because the Hokage made the arrangement, but by the time she gets back, it might be advantageous for everyone to know about this. She should not be played with, even though the village is secure. She can still eliminate the issue even if they lose themselves in their rage and terror. If only on a personal level. As they descended the stairs and entered the village, Masara cast a sidelong glance. Inform them, or don't. You have the final say. After this, we won't discuss it with anyone, not even the boss. The two nin appeared unconcerned and at ease. For a while they sat back and watched the village in silence. Ken gave Ryu a quick glance. At some point, we ought to discuss it with the Hokage. Not to worry, we still have a few years left. If they did something foolish without warning, I would feel horrible. I'm not too concerned about Sarutobi, but those two are correct. Ryu gave a nod. There's no rush, just as you stated. We shouldn't, in my opinion, wait until the last minute. Nevertheless, we ought to at least speak with the elderly man and let him make the final decision. He appeared happy as he extended his arms. I'm not too concerned about that. He's a smart man, so I doubt he'll choose poorly in this regard. Sakura's hands were folded in her lap as she sat. Her head hung low, her eyes wide. Yamanaka Ino was lying flat on a hospital bed next to her. A plastic barrier encircled her, and all over the bandages covering her head to toe was the writing of some kind of jutsu. The girl would not live for more than an hour outside of her safety net, even though she was still alive. Her eyes were vacant. It was inside a vat of clear fluid, and she lay there resting. It was more like a gel than actual water. Two tubes ran down her arm, providing her body with the necessary nutrients to sustain life, and down her neck to the mask that carried her oxygen. It had been explained what had happened to her. Her body had attempted to spread out when she broke her jutsu. The girl next to her was essentially nothing more than a sort of gel, but it took some time. Despite their best efforts, none of the medical professionals were able to resolve the issue. It wasn't even a full day yet, but she was moving slowly forward. Asuma had arrived and left as it was almost midnight. On the other side of the bed sat Ino's parents. She didn't blame them. Neither had spoken to her. Other than a low, "I'm sorry," she said nothing to them after she had gone in. They had no desire to converse with her. She was appreciative that they hadn't asked her to leave and acknowledged it. The man and woman were just staring at what remained of their daughter, simply sitting and holding each other. Sakura was powerless and sat there doing nothing. She was only able to look at her through the vat they were holding her in. Her eyes were empty and lifeless. Standing at the foot of the bed, Shikamaru and Choji had both expressed their sympathies to the girl's parents while remaining silent in front of the other guests. The two boys, especially Shikamaru, were fidgety. They alternated between standing at the edge of the bed and sitting in the room's chairs. Holding a clipboard, one of the medial nin entered the room. He approached the parents of Ino. With a mixture of fear and hope, they both raised their heads to face him. The man had a dejected expression. "I apologize. She can be held together by us, but this is something that has never happened before. She is not dead, but she is alive." Mrs. Yamanaka displayed horror. "WH. What?" Her husband moaned a little in sorrow and hung his head. The physician surveyed the space. "Perhaps it's best if I spoke to the parents alone." Shikamaru gave a headshake. "Not at all. I'm already anticipating your response. Her mind is gone, but she's still alive. She is merely a vegetable." Her father glared at the boy, and Ino's mother stared at him horrified. The physician nodded and scowled at him. "Yeah. That's accurate. We are powerless to change it. Her body is liquefied, even if we could get our hands on her mind. Her mind could not contain it. Her body is beyond repair, and trying to fix it without her mind would be pointless. We are not qualified to handle this as medical professionals." He looked at the two horrified parents and sighed heavily. I'm sorry, but... Shikamaru glared at Sakura, growling. The girl was crying, her head hung, her body trembling. Cease speaking. You really should fix her. Her thoughts are still there. Sakura, isn't that right? The kunoichi with pink hair gasped and looked up. Her mouth dropped open as she gave him a pale look. Turning, she saw that all eyes were on her. Nah. I have no idea what you're... Shoji recoiled, unsure of what was going on. He scowled at Haruno in an unpleasant way. Shikamaru gave a nod. I figured that out sort of. During the exam, you battled Naruto using Ino's jutsu. If you put in the effort, I'm willing to wager that you could effortlessly execute the Shin-Ten-Shin. She is indeed in there. Since this incident, you've been behaving like her, but you appear to alternate between the two of you. Sakura gave a start and got up. No. The physician raised an eyebrow. What is this? Nara averted his gaze. If I wasn't sure, I wouldn't bring this up at this particular moment. Trust me. Like Ino did, she has been grabbing that Sasuke. Although I didn't know Sakura well, I do recall that she had never been that forthcoming with him. That was never a concern for Ino. The way she supported me during my battle with Ten-Ten, and the way she swore at Sound Nin when Shoji lost. Sakura has changed since joining her team. She is typically calm and no longer yells. She's been acting strangely ever since she defeated Ino. As previously mentioned, I didn't know her well, but I do recall that we were in the same class at the academy. His eyes fell on Ino's parents. I don't know what happened, but Sakura still thinks about Ino. I am aware of it. Sakura essentially collapsed backward into her seat. WH. What? She wept, clutching her head. What topic are you discussing? The girl received a frown from the medical nin. He turned to face the boy. Pardon me, but I felt that the two of you staying here for so long seemed a little strange. It's a little late, but I know you two are friends. You were aware of this? Shikamaru gave a shrug. I wanted to make sure first, before speaking. You are not going to give up on Ino just yet. If Sakura's body heals, we can fix it as long as she's with us. With that, Mrs. Yamanaka looked at Sakura. What is he talking about? Mr. Yamanaka spoke to the girl who had been sitting with them while grabbing his wife by the shoulders and holding her in place. Sakura, please explain. Tears filled the girl's eyes as she glanced up at her. I'm not sure. I mean... The Nin Medical. Please, young lady, accompany me. It is verifiable if this is accurate. He gave Shikamaru a scowl. You'd better be right. The boy smiled a little. I have no doubt about it. Since this incident, she has been acting strangely, as even her team has noticed. Nara extended his hand to Sakura, who got to her feet. As she left the room with the medical nin, she appeared extremely pale. The following day, the Hokage was seated behind his desk. With his hands behind his back, Naruto stood before him. The old man was smoking a pipe while staring at a folder in the room by himself. Uzumaki. The boy appeared alert and focused, having been called to see the elderly man. You asked to see me? Indeed. You have a mission from me. Sarutobi sighed deeply. It will be very difficult, but I feel your particular set of skills are just what is needed to deal with this problem. The boy nodded, blinking in surprise. What is it you need? Throwing the folder onto his desk, Sarutobi did so. We appear to be in a highly unique circumstance. I have to admit that what has happened has confused me a little, but it needs to be handled quickly and discreetly. Naruto appeared to consider it for a while. I'm not sure I understand. The Hokage nodded. Indeed. Oh, you are aware of Maeda Guy. You've undoubtedly met him. Uzumaki simply had a more shocked expression. Yes. Senior Thick Bros, yes. Though he didn't chastise him, the old man didn't appear amused either. Indeed. During the exam, he and Kakashi were in the arena. Naruto's expression darkened. I'm not sure I like where this is going. The Hokage scowled a little more while nodding. He appeared almost irritated. He took a very rash action. Unusual for him. Once more, the boy nodded. What do you need me to do? The elderly man folded his hands as he leaned against his desk. He's stolen a scroll containing dangerous and sensitive information and left the village. The hooded nin nodded, seemingly unperturbed. I see. Sarutobi gave a headshake. It's unfortunate. Please get it for me. And, with an arched eyebrow, Naruto bided his time. I'd like you to capture him, alive, and bring him back to the village for questioning. Naruto's eyes widened somewhat. What? Do you want me to apprehend that guy? The elderly man gave a nod. Yes, that is accurate. We have to ascertain his actions. It is your responsibility to pick up the scroll and return it whole. I'm afraid you're not ready for what it contains, so don't open it. Uzumaki looked around the room, bewildered. That part sounds easy enough. Indeed. And he needs to be brought back to the village to be questioned. I have no idea what motivated him to do this stupid thing, but we need to find out what he planned to do with the data on this scroll. I fear it would be too risky for us to just follow him around and find out what he intends to do with it. The boy appeared perplexed. I don't understand, but... Sarutobi sighed deeply. I worry that he might want to utilize this knowledge for himself. He won't benefit from it right away. Even if he uses the information for his personal gain, it could put us all in danger because it is somewhat time sensitive. I think he thinks it will help him in some way, which is foolish. It is your task to apprehend him and bring him back to Konoha. Ibiki is going to have to probe him to find out why. Naruto shifted and scanned the area, seemingly searching for another person. You want me to pursue him, I guess? Me alone? The elderly man gave a nod. That's correct. For a moment, the hooded nin stared at the ground. Please pardon me, but why me? Not that I'm a chunin, really. Isn't that what he should be? Sarutobi gave a nod. Indeed. As of right now, he is regarded as Konoha's strongest junin. Although he specializes in taijutsu, he is proficient in all branches of the shinobi arts. The elderly man reclined in his chair. That constitutes the majority of this issue. His genjutsu skills aren't the best, but he can counter almost any opponent of that type, and there aren't any ninjutsu users who can outclass him without killing him and destroying a significant portion of the village he has taken refuge in. I don't have anyone who would be strong enough to defeat him and bring him back with physical force. The boy appeared a little taken aback. I see. He gave it some thinking. Why is he still in the country if he's done something like this? The old man took a puff from his pipe and appeared to relax. He appeared a little irritated, but not at the boy. Not only is the information time sensitive, but he needs to be in a specific location. I think he's sure that his abilities will enable him to hold out. He is aware that I am unable to allow a full-scale ninja attack on a village located in Fire Country. Politics would be in disarray. I can only send one operative in his direction. Naruto nodded. How about utilizing Kakashi? It's expected that they will be closely matched. I remember him expressing a similar thought once. He was well aware that Midao Guy was no simpleton and that he had no chance of defeating him in combat. The man wasn't stupid or a coward, just a little strange. The elderly man gave a nod. He's gone and won't be back for 4 more days. He's been sent on a mission to the north by me. I'm sorry, but I can't give you specifics on that. We think your specific skill set is the best fit. So, my orders are to capture him alive, and return the scroll intact. With a scowl, Naruto nodded toward the ground. Sarutobi took a few more reclines in his chair. True. 3 days are up to you. You already know that there was a deadline. We require that scroll for ourselves. Its contents are delicate and ought to be kept under wraps. This is crucial. You are not to open it. If the seal is broken, it won't go well, especially if it happens too soon or in the wrong location. Naruto gave a nod. I take it I'm on my own then? As previously stated, I am not aware of anyone who could be very helpful. Guy is a crafty and formidable foe. Sarutobi nodded gravely as he leaned across his desk. Be careful, Uzumaki. He doesn't want to be discouraged or stopped. Anticipate him to behave violently and hostilely toward any ninja, leaf or not. Head cocked, Naruto did. That individual? That doesn't seem at all like him. Though we didn't spend much time together, he seemed. Well. The Hokage gave a nod. That also worries me. That's one of the reasons I think it's crucial that he is apprehended alive and brought back to Konoha for questioning. Only Ibiki possesses the ability to guarantee that his responses are truthful. I don't think he's in his right mind, so at this point he can't be trusted. It really concerns me. With a sigh, Naruto scratched the back of his head and nodded. Huh, 3 days? I guess I had better get moving. This is going to require a lot of thinking, man. Do you believe there's a problem with him? Is it mind control or something else? Sarutobi presented a folder to him. I'm not sure, but I think I had considered it. I'm afraid there is nothing more I can say to you. This includes access papers for the armory, a description of the scroll you need to find, and a map of the neighboring village. Recall Guy and the scroll, both as much alive as possible. After acknowledging it, the boy turned to leave the room. Human. The first one must have messed up pretty bad, thick bros. How in the world am I going to manage this? Seeing that he had nowhere else to go, he turned and headed out of the office down the hallway. I wonder if he was somehow brainwashed? Perhaps that guy from Orochimaru yesterday? He was headed to confront a taijutsu master, still a little sore from that. This one is really bad. Man, if I make it through, I'm going to be hurt for a month. His abilities from the time his wife was imprisoned inside of him were still there, but they were all diminished. Even so, he was now healing more slowly than anyone he knew. It was taking up to a day for injuries that normally healed in an hour or so. He entered the village after leaving through the doors. Might as well get this over with. Naruto had a pair of binoculars and was perched on a tall tree branch. He had been granted unrestricted access to Konoha's armory. Unfortunately, his target was supposed to be taken alive, so he had to locate a stupid scroll beforehand. In the end, he only took a couple of tiny bottles. A fox with no name was perched on the branch next to him. They were looking down on a little settlement of wooden shacks and a few sporadic, tiny shops. There was only one restaurant there, along with a few small shops. The boy was looking out over the village, saying, well, what can you tell me about what he's been doing? Guy had been jogging around the village for an hour without showing any signs of stopping. Prior to that, he had performed 3,000 push-ups and over 1,000 leg kicks on a dummy. It was a two-tailed fox, and it was staring up at him with his tongue hanging out. Well, you see it. He's been like that since he got here yesterday evening. When he's done, he'll probably go back to the place he's rented out above the clothing store after he stops to eat. It's what he did yesterday. After observing the man for a full day and a half, Naruto nodded. He had about 1 night and 1 more whole day to finish the task. He had 1.5 days left. Yeah. If it's anything like yesterday, he'll stop to eat at that yakitori place when he's done. Well, I guess I should get started then. He let out a deep sigh as he hopped down from the tree branch. Man, I feel like I've been set up. This one is bugging me. He slipped into the underbrush that surrounded the town. At least not from anyone he considered a threat. Guy was not behaving as though he expected to be attacked. Having trained all day, he was not really looking out for anyone who could be pursuing him. The man had completed his 700th lap just before he leapt to the ground. He was grinning and waving to the villagers as he entered. I've got a feeling this isn't what I was told it was. Not that it matters, it's still in order. Guy was consuming a large bowl of vegetables along with a bowl of rice and a few sticks of meat. He was by himself, sitting at a yakitori restaurant counter. The village was peaceful, as was the location, but not in a gloomy sense. Rather, it was a laid-back kind. A man entered the restaurant, took a seat down the counter a few seats away, and he looked over his shoulder. He wore a round straw hat that he didn't take off, along with a mask. He placed some coins on the table, his hands filthy and worn, then cast a sidelong glance at the man. Maeda laughed. He glanced down at his food and said, "He's here." From the corner of his eye, he witnessed the man attempt to conceal a tiny bottle of liquid in his hand, saying, "Well, it's about time." Hey. So, that's his plan. Clever, but he must take me for a fool. The two sat silently, watching each other out of the corners of their eyes as they each consumed a few strips of meat off of a stick. 5 minutes or so later, the man got up and left. Guy's eyes narrowed. He threw back his plate and poured the contents of the bowl of vegetables into his mouth. The chef picked up his plates and set them aside to clean. He wasn't concerned about finishing his food. Instead, he said, "I must finish my vegetables, or I shall not remain strong." He and his dishes had never been approached by the stranger. He had remained roughly 8 feet away, never coming close or even making a slight movement toward him. He turned his back on the counter and went outside, cautiously scanning his surroundings. He strode out into the middle of the road, asking, "Did I spook him?" The unkempt, appearing traveler had vanished, and nothing appeared strange. He took a little stroll before entering the clothes store and making his way to his room. His belongings being strewn about didn't surprise him in the least. His chin was rubbed, saying, "Hey. I see." Gazing into an empty drawer, Guy said, "Clever, but more than one? I should have expected." Ignoring the mess. With 3 hand seals raised, he said, "Hey. Well now. He is clever, but still bears the inexperience of youth." He stood for a moment in contemplation before opening his eyes. "I have him." After bolting from the room and down the stairs, he turned to sprint across the street. Down the road was a small, deserted warehouse. He came to a halt in front of the door and leaned his back against it, exclaiming, "Excellent, the perfect place." He slowly and carefully pulled open the door and peered through the crack. The room was deserted and dark. He crept inside and took a quick look around. Nobody was in sight. Packed around the large empty space in the center of the room were boxes and crates. As he walked to the center of the room, one of the floorboards gave a slight creak. I know he is here, but where?" There was a sound of rustling fabric behind him. The filthy traveler's cloak and straw hat were struck by a kick that Guy spun into, but the figure remained motionless as it hit the ground. He walked over and kicked it, saying, "Hey. That seems a bit too easy." That was exactly what he expected, just a piece of wood. He froze and peered over his shoulder. "Well, he's not left yet, I can still feel." What? The missing scroll from his room was hanging from a string. He reached for it, blinking incoherently. His fingers barely touched the seal before it broke, allowing the scroll to fall open. There was just one word written inside. Awful. Guy's eyes widened and he retreated from it. What? There were 4 clattering sounds coming from the room's corners. There was a trap of sorts, and the string that held the scroll was the trigger. Gas canisters began hissing from all 4 corners of the space. Guy covered his mouth and nose with his arm. He leapt out the nearby window and rolled onto the dirt between the warehouse and the building next to it, saying, "Hey. I see." He snapped to attention, gritting his teeth. Does he know? Behind him, in the shadows, was Naruto, grinning as he saw Guy take off. "Hey. This isn't as bad as I thought." His target darted to the town's edge and stopped abruptly. Glaring off the edge of the road, he cast a sidelong glance. He turned around and saw the filthy stranger standing in the middle of the street. "No. I see. So, he hasn't found it yet." Guy clenched his fist and narrowed his eyes. "You there. What is it you seek here?" The man gave him a sharp scowl and stood with his arms crossed. "I'm obeying orders, of course. I hope you don't think I don't realize that this is some kind of stupid test." Maeda clenched his fist and snarled. "You're so sure of that, are you?" The figure gave a headshake. "Doesn't matter if it is or isn't. You're wanted by Konoha. You've got something I need, and you're coming with me." The man went into a combat stance. "So, you think you can force me?" The unfamiliar person nodded once. "Yup." Guy glared at him sharply. "You're a fool to have revealed yourself. I spotted you right away. You're not worthy, and you'll never get what you came for. Now, you'll just be defeated." The figure gave a headshake. I've already beaten you. You just don't know it yet. Guy blurred, emerging from behind the unfamiliar person. He pressed his fist into the back of the strange man's head, asking, "Is that so?" The hat flew away, and Guy scowled, saying, "Think what you want about what this is, I'll not go easy on you." A clone. He scowled and balled up his fist without seeming surprise. "For the honor of Maida Guy, I cannot allow you to win." Guy turned around and gasped, "Are you sure?" Kakashi? What are you? Wait. You're not. Imposter. The man who appeared to be the taijutsu master's biggest opponent was rushed by the master. "You fool. You think you can trick me? I know my greatest rival far too well." Kakashi took a bullet to the stomach but ducked back to avoid a quick blow. He crashed into a building's side, breaking through the wall. He vanished in an instant. A very good duplicate, but not good enough. I know my rival is abroad, on other business. 3 more enigmatic figures descended onto adjacent rooftops, each slung a sword hilt over their shoulder. They appeared to wallow in themselves without saying anything. Guy laughed. He assumed a ready stance and waved his hand at the first of the 3 that landed in front of him, saying, "It doesn't matter if there are 3 or 1,000. You face the full force of Konoha's strongest. Naruto Uzumaki." "I see." He grinned menacingly at the boy. "I expect that you will do your best, but you must realize that you cannot win." The boy approached him with a tall stance. He glared at the man and balled up his fists, saying, "Does it matter? Real or not, test or betrayal, I've been given an order. I'll see it through to the end, even if it kills me." Guy smiled dazzlingly and lifted a thumb. "Well, then I shall allow you to live. You'll be in the hospital for a month or so, but I cannot snuff out such a noble and true virtue as this. Work hard, and continue this path, and you shall surely achieve your goal." He began to hop around. "However, that day is not today, I cannot permit your victory. You are not prepared for what you must first face." The 2 Naruto on the rooftop appeared to take off simultaneously and collide head on across the street. As they hit the ground, they disappeared into puffs and fell into the center of the dirt street. The last one standing gasped in shock as he watched. A huge crater appeared where he had been standing, and he hopped away, saying, "So fast," as he glanced over his shoulder. He slashed as he landed, drawing his blade. Guy punched the flat edge of the blade to stop it. He delivered a kick that was nearly too quick to see as he twisted and spun. The boy flipped away, ducking under the blow. When Maida landed, he used his hands and feet to force the boy to push sideways. His blade clanked to the floor. "You're faster than I expected." Breathless, Naruto clutched kunai firmly in his fists. "Yeah. You're not. I've seen Lee without his weights, you're just a tad slower." Guy gave him a smile. "Yes, but I am far more powerful. My prodigy Lee, he is my most precious student. Ten and Neji both fill my heart with pride as well, but he is closest to my heart." Naruto gave a nod. Guy enjoyed running his mouth because it allowed him to take a breather. "Yeah. I'm sure the feeling is mutual. You 2 thick brows seem pretty close." Guy balled his fist, ready to strike once more. "Flattery will not win you this day." The nin with a hood laughed. He unleashed a barrage of blows, sending 6 of his weaponry hurtling toward his opponent, saying, "I told you already. I've already won. You just don't know it yet." Guy leapt into the air, and upon looking over his shoulder, he gasped. A 6-year old boy was crouching in the path of the weapons, saying, "What? No." Naruto appeared to notice it too, as he gave a growl. "Shit." The weapons were stopped inches in front of the boy by 6 throwing stars that fell from the sky. As Guy touched down, he embraced the boy. With a sly grin that seemed rather evil, the boy said, You should not be here. Go home, and... Man, you're so predictable." He realized as he grasped Naruto. The clone disappeared before it hit the ground, and Guy dropped him, clutching his head, as the hooded nin boxed his ears. The guy was furious. "What? Of all the dirty underhanded. Some distance behind him in the road, the hooded nin laughed. Flattery will not win you this day. With a growl, Guy advanced toward the boy. His hands shot down, and just before the animal trap closed around his leg, he caught it with his palms. With a simple leg movement, he left the jaws twisted and bent but left himself unharmed. Hey. Very clever. You've got a strong will, and you believe in yourself. Admirable, but it will take a great deal of hard work and many years to defeat me. With his arms crossed, Naruto gave the man a dead look and nodded. He disappeared in a cloud of smoke, saying, "Yeah, well. I'm afraid I've already worked hard for a few years. You're a strong opponent, but..." Guy laughed. The man turned and saw another Naruto standing behind him, his arms crossed over his chest. "Hey. I see you're not fool enough to face me yourself. Admirable, but it doesn't matter how many you send. I'll defeat 1 or 1,000 of you without breaking a sweat. As I said, you are not yet worthy of such a thing as you seek." Naruto appeared assured and maintained his distance, saying, "I know that. I'll never beat you that way. You're just too strong. I don't need any more though." "This is already over." Maeda nodded gravely. "So, you've realized how useless it is. You should return to Konoha. You're not ready for what you seek, but you've impressed me. I believe you have a great future ahead of you, Uzumaki." He laughed and raised his arms. "Kakashi has impressed me. I never thought his students would all become so strong. You truly have earned the rank of Chunin, along with your fellow students Haruno and Uchiha. I never expected you to achieve this before my strong and proud students. Everyone knew you would rise to this rank, but to have all 3 of Team 7 rise to such a level in such a short time. My eternal rival has now brought us to even terms once again. 50 wins to 50 losses." Naruto gave a headshake. "I said I couldn't beat you by overpowering you, I never said I couldn't beat you. I told you already, I've been given an order. The only thing I seek here is to complete my mission. It's already too late to stop me, and I'm not leaving until it's over. Victory or death." Guy cast a somber glance. "Even knowing you face an impossible task, you will keep coming? You've no hope of winning. Yet. I cannot allow you to win, you must take your victory by force. Still. You have become a better ninja than I expected. Kakashi was right to warn me of you." Naruto smirked and appeared to be amused. "What? Did you think you could talk me out of this? As you said, flattery won't win you this day. Come. Let us continue. I look forward to fighting with you until tomorrow evening when your loss will be complete." Guy clenched his fists. "No. You're going to lose in 3, 2. Guy scowled and tilted his head. "What? 1. Maeda Guy appeared to clam up. His gaze grew agitated and perplexed before rolling up as he collapsed onto the ground, losing consciousness. Naruto unwinded. "Man. Well, at least it didn't hurt as much as I thought it might. Still, what a pain." Guy shook his head, moaned, and looked around him. His arms and legs dangled over the edge of a warm, bouncy, uncomfortable place where he lay on his belly. His face was pricked by coarse hairs, and his senses were assaulted by an unsettling smell. "Huh? What? Oh? Awake are we? Where?" Guy asked, perplexed. No. Both his feet and hands were bound together. Like a saddle, he was chained around an ox. He yanked at his chains, growling. "I wouldn't do that if I were you. Not if you like having hands and feet anyway." Lifting his head, he cocked his neck over his shoulder. "Uzumaki?" He caught the boy's eye again. Perched atop the ox's shoulders was him. "Yup." He barked, "What? How did? These chains won't hold me long." Naruto had a happy voice. "If you break them, the explosive tags wrapped around your wrists and ankles will explode. You're pretty strong, but I'm pretty sure I can beat you if you've got no hands and feet." The man's temples throbbed as he shook his head. "What happened?" The nin with a hood laughed. Since this is some kind of test, I guess I can explain it all. The drugs took a little while to knock you out. I needed you to show me where this was before you passed out. The sight of the scroll in the boy's hand made Guy pale. What? How did you find that? Naruto cast a sidelong glance in his direction. This one is worn, but the paper on that one was brand new. It was a good forgery, and the jutsu inside it was a tracking jutsu. Well, I realized that the one in your dresser was fake. With a growl, Guy said, you weren't supposed to open that. No, the boy shook his head. He put it back in his shirt and waved it over his shoulder, saying, I wasn't supposed to open this one. You thought I was playing you while I went for the real one, once you realized you'd been duped. He glanced down the road ahead of him, you know, the one with the jutsu on it that would let you know when anyone disturbed the hiding place. How did you find it? Guy nodded. Naruto shrugged, looked up the road they were traveling down, and said, after they found it, I had them show me where it was once I had you subdued. I saw where you were looking, and had the local foxes search the area while I was keeping you busy and waiting for the drugs to take effect. His inmate appeared perplexed. Drunk me? I observed you. I recognized you right away. You were never near enough to give me anything. When did you succeed in doing so? You ought to have noticed him. You were blind to the fact that I spent the entire time behind the counter. It was me who prepared your food. The suspicious looking stranger was just there to keep your attention. Naruto laughed once more. The real owner of that place was knocked out in the back. When I cooked the food, I added the drugs. You see, I never got close, so you figured I noticed that you were too guarded to worry about it, he said, looking back up the road. That's why I flashed that bottle, so you wouldn't bother thinking that you were already eating the poison. You concluded that the warmth and perspiration you felt were simply from moving around and not from the poison taking effect after I had you running around. In order to enter your system a little quicker, it also increased your heart rate. For a little while, I thought you might faint before you revealed to me where you concealed the scroll. I felt that beefstick was a little tough, scowled Guy. He turned to face the others and said, where are we? The vegetables were a little overdone as well. He was using a pick that he had hidden inside his sleeve to work on the lock. Obviously, the Konoha gate. You can use the lockpick to cut it out. It's just a piece of plastic, and before you can use it to unlock those chains, it will break. Although I've kept you sedated the entire way back, I would drug you again. It's just a diversionary to keep you occupied until I give you another dose in case I made a mistake and you wake up too early, Naruto said, getting off the oxen and grabbing the rope before pulling the animal behind him. Uzumaki. Glancing over the animal's side, Guy saw the Konoha gates, where the Hokage stood with Anko, Kakashi, Ibiki, and Iruka. The elderly man, looking quite pleased with himself, nodded to the boy as he gave him the scroll. Iruka appeared stunned by what he saw and exclaimed, N. No way. With a deep sigh, Kakashi said, I warned him. Anko gave a nod. Very good. That must be the end of it. Naruto appeared to be happy. Did I do well on your test? Anyhow, what is this? A pre-Anbu induction exam? Something like an unofficial Chunin event? The Hokage laughed, in a manner. He turned to face Kakashi, who was holding his head while Ibiki laughed and removed the rope that led the ox from Naruto's grasp. With a laugh, the battered interrogation specialist said, come on. He grabbed a set of keys that Naruto threw at him and began to unlock them. Let's get you out of these chains. Guy appeared a little uneasy. What about the tags that are explosive? With a playful look, Naruto said, no. Those are merely ordinary paper strips with some writing on them. The Junin's eyes widened a bit. WH. What? Hey, the boy shrugged. It could have injured the ox if you had actually broken the chains. If you had called my bluff and I had to catch you again, I didn't want to carry you back myself. Furthermore, that was merely a safety measure in case the medications wore off too quickly and I missed it. With a heavy sigh, Anko said, I guess that's it. To be honest, even I'm taken aback. I didn't believe he was capable of pulling it off. With a chuckle, the Hokage asked, do any of you still question my choice? Do you believe he is unable to handle it? With a heavy sigh, Kakashi said, I still think he lacks enough experience. I'm not going to contest it. Though I'm sure he'll succeed, please keep in mind that he's still learning. He won't get along with it well. With a quick look at him, Iruka nodded. I'd have to agree, but this is beyond me. I don't think I have any place in it. He glanced at Naruto. Good job. The boy in the hood scratched at his head. What's this about anyway? He asked, looking a little perplexed and as though he had realized something wasn't quite right about what was happening. Kakashi moved to stand beside the boy and placed his hand on his shoulder. His teacher took a moment to speak, then said, "You're being promoted." Naruto gave a nod. Oh. That's... The man was done. To Junin. Naruto's eyes widened a little. What? He exclaimed as he glanced at the group of people staring at him with a look that combined humor, pride, and sympathy. Reaching the boy's side, Sarutobi placed his hand on his shoulder. This test isn't something that's normal. Usually, a Junin is selected by myself, from within the ranks of Chunin. Only our most excellent performers are chosen. I'll explain. 2 days ago, I held a meeting. In front of the Hokage's desk stood Kakashi, accompanied by Iruka, Guy, Asuma, and Anko. The elderly man observed the trio while puffing on his pipe. Well, now that we've discussed the promotion of Nara, Haruno, and Uchiha, there's one other who should be discussed. Anko smiled. Uzumaki. The elderly man nodded. Kakashi gave the woman a look. I'm guessing you're handing him over to her to prepare for the Anbu. Sarutobi gave a nod. Yes. In fact, I'm giving her your whole team. There will be introductory training of course, but I expect the team to remain intact. They work well together, and their skills are growing to complement each other quite well. In fact, Uzumaki will be the squad leader as a Junin. With wide eyes, everyone froze in place and turned to face the elderly man. With his cigarette hanging from his lip, Asuma took a step back. He gave Kakashi a quick look and said nothing. Speaking up wasn't really his business. Kakashi advanced with a startling gait. WH. What? Iruka had a hanging jaw. With all due respect, sir. I know this is far over my head, but I've got to protest. I realize I was wrong about the exam, but there's no way he's ready for this. He's not even spent a day as a Chunin. Guy nodded, scowling. I must respectfully agree. The elderly man gave a headshake. I'd say he has. Isn't that right, Kakashi? The captain of Team 7 hung his head. Yes. He's been leading the team since the Wave Country incident. He's not officially been a Chunin, but he's been acting like one within the team. He raised his eyebrows. I cannot agree with this. He's inexperienced, and he's not ready. He doesn't have the requirements. Eyebrow arched by Sarutobi. Requirements? What requirements? I'm fairly certain that this is a promotion position and that it is my prerogative. Tell me, what areas do you find him lacking in? Guy scowled. Sir, he's very young. I admit he is an excellent student, Kakashi speaks highly of him, but this. He is not yet worthy. Kakashi gave a nod. I have to agree. I'll be the first to speak for him. He's a genius, but he lacks the basic skill requirements for the job. He doesn't know a single elemental manipulation or recomposition. He's got no skill in genjutsu. Maeda gave a nod. I'm afraid I've got to agree. He'd never defeat Lee in taijutsu. Sarutobi gave a nod. Yes. I understand these concerns, but I must remind you that elemental manipulation and recomposition is... Well, some of you Junin overrate its importance. Besides, this is not something that will be dumped upon his head all at once. He will be trained, and won't be the first to receive such training after his rank has been given. I should also remind that genjutsu is kind of a moot point. I'm sure you've noticed, but his unique abilities have granted him an immunity from most genjutsu techniques. Neither one of you protected him from the attack on the arena, and he was unaffected by a very high-level genjutsu assault. Kakashi became rigid. Sir, with all due respect. I must ask what makes you think he's qualified? The elderly man gave a nod. A fair question. He is loyal and disciplined. He's tactically superior to all of you. You can't argue against that. He wrote the manual that we use to teach tactics at the academy. He's a skilled user of ninjutsu, though he does not use the type of jutsu you typically expect a Junin-level nin to use. His information gathering and spying skills are exceptional. He's shown an aptitude for assassinations and infiltration, and his basic chakra control is superior to yours. Kakashi began to uncross his arms, gasping and sounding slightly irritated. What? That's not. The group turned around and gasped. Actually, it is. A man with a frown on his face, long white hair, and kabuki makeup was leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. Gazing at Sarutobi, Jiraiya watched them all and said, "Control-wise at any rate." I can't say I agree with this myself, but to be honest, I'm having a hard time finding a good reason to argue against it. Aside from the fact that he has only a little working experience. Hokage gave a nod. Yes. What little he has is superior performance. He's handled his missions with exceptional talent, and his team has grown stronger and more skilled because of his presence. I don't expect him to take students anytime soon, but I do believe he will become a great teacher. Kakashi gave Jiraiya a narrowed look. What do you mean? His control is better than mine? I don't see it. The individual shrugged. He can turn the flow of his chakra on and off at any point on his body in an instant. He can also do this quickly, in rapid succession. I know you showed him the tree climbing technique, and that Ebisu showed him water walking. He didn't follow your training instructions. Kakashi's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Jiraiya gave a headshake. He took it to a greater level. When he uses those techniques, he only uses chakra in his feet when they touch the surface he is walking on. Once he loses contact, he retracts his chakra and repeats it as needed. It uses less chakra and helps keep him hidden from those who can sense chakra. Your manipulation skill is superior, and you're definitely better at recomposition, but as far as pure basic control, he's better than anyone in this room, including me. He lacks training in several areas, and I'd like to work with him myself a little concerning that. He frowned at Sarutobi. I hope you know what you're doing. I agreed to come because you gave me certain assurances. Still, this doesn't sound like what you wanted from me, though it is interesting. The Hokage gave a nod. Looking around the room, he said, yes, I'd like to speak with you concerning that after this meeting. I understand your concerns. I feel you will benefit from this. I don't plan on drowning him right away. His early career will involve training and preparation, just as Kakashi and Guy did. I'm not sending him off on S-class missions as soon as he receives his uniform. Calm yourselves. Guy scowled. Such power can be dangerous for one so young. Kakashi gave him a quick look. His ego is the least of my worries. I was his age when I became a Junin. He's not arrogant or foolish. He seems careful and wary of that, so it's not a big concern for me. Asuma raised her voice. This isn't my concern, but I agree with Kakashi as far as that goes. Shikamaru is friends with him. What little I know of him tells me he's not an arrogant boy. He seems pretty laid back. Guy nodded as she looked at the two Junin. Times were different then. I mean you and the boy, no disrespect, Kakashi, but he is not yet ready, or worthy, for the title and rank of Junin. Let him remain a Chunin for a time, and prove himself for a few years more first. Anko's eyes grew narrow. I've got to agree. My job will be to get him ready for the Anbu, and I will. His rank doesn't mean much to me, but I'm afraid I'm with him. Jiraiya gave Sarutobi a quick glance. To be honest, I'm afraid I agree with the Sarutobi sensei. However, I can see that all of you have reasons for concern. It's not really of any concern to me, but I think the boy can handle it. Though, it may be harder on him than we imagine. Even then, I believe he will come through. He's a rare find for a nin. I understand your concerns, and agree on some level. I feel he's strong enough in mind and body to handle it. He's very disciplined, especially for one so young in such peaceful times. The Hokage gave a nod. Yes. I admit this is a difficult decision, and a bit unusual. I've thought long and hard upon this, but I feel with the protest given, a test is in order. Kakashi tilted his forehead. Test. Guy scowled. I see. Sarutobi gave a nod. We will give him a nearly impossible task. If he is able to complete this task, he will be given the rank of Chunin. If he fails, he will remain a Chunin. Either way, he will be given to Anko, to prepare him for the Anbu with his teammates. Kakashi nodded gravely. I see. I can accept that. Guy's eyes narrowed. Yes. That will do. A faded scroll was placed on Sarutobi's desk. Guy, so that there is no question of loyalty in this test with others, you will administer this test. You will take this. Go to the village of Saitogakuri just outside Konoha. There you will wait. Naruto will be tasked with defeating you, capturing you alive, and bringing this scroll back unopened. He must complete this task within 3 days, or you will fail. Anko snorted with amusement. There's no way he'll pull that off. I doubt I could do it, never mind in only 3 days. Kakashi appeared to unwind a bit more. Guy, he said, turning to face the man. I know you won't lose on purpose, but... The man turned and flashed a brilliant smile at his opponent. I shall do my best not to seriously harm. Kakashi gave a headshake. No. You do what you have to. Take Naruto as a serious opponent. If you get even the slightest chance, crush him. He's young and it's true he won't defeat you in a fight, but he's very smart. Take this fight seriously, as if he intends to harm the village. As soon as you see him, you do everything you can to beat him. Even if it means hurting him. I know you won't kill him for an exam, but if you take him lightly for even a moment, he will take advantage and defeat even you. Asuma appeared taken aback. Guy regarded him strangely, and Anko laughed a little. Sarutobi gave a nod. Yes. Kakashi begins to see my point. The old man's smile caught everyone's attention. He was warning Guy with his eyes. Maeda glared back, clenching the scroll. For the honor of Konoha's Chunin, I shall not lose. The Hokage gave a nod. Very well. That is all. Kakashi, I need you to leave the village for a short time. Come back tomorrow afternoon, I'm sure Sakura and Sasuke would like you to be there when they receive their promotions. With a nod, Kakashi turned away. Everyone else in the room left with him, with the exception of Jiraiya. Since Jiraiya was the only survivor, the Hokage fixed his gaze on him. As for you, I have need of your help. The nin with white hair scowled. If this is about retiring. Sarutobi laughed. He sighed heavily and frowned gravely. No, no. I have a unique problem. There has been an unusual injury as a result of the exams. None of our medical nin are able to do anything about it. I'm afraid the only one I trust to find the only one with a hope of dealing with this problem is you. Jiraiya gave a nod. He leaned against the desk and peered over his shoulder, saying, I see. You want me to find Tsunade. I'm sure that's not all you want with her. Sarutobi smiled a little at him. Well, it is true that I need her. I would be asking this of you anyway. Still, it is a unique problem, and she is the only medical nin with enough skill to help with the problem. It will be enough of a challenge to interest her, I think. Though, it might take a little convincing. Sennin gave a nod. I'll do it, on one condition. The elderly man laughed. I'll agree to it on one condition. Jiraiya scowled. You don't know what I... Naruto. You want to take him with you. Fine, but I need you to take Sakura Haruno as well. You may need her to help convince Tsunade that she should come and help. It will be an example of the challenge of this task that may entice her to come here. After a prolonged moment of frowning, the white-haired Sannin appeared to be thinking. All right, but she'd better not get in the way. Sarutobi laughed. Don't worry about it, she's a spirited girl. Doubly so in recent times, and that's part of the problem here. Jiraiya gave a nod and turned to go. I'll pick him up a day or two after your little test. Sakura Haruno took a seat at her bed's end. Her eyes were rather vacant, and her head was hung low. She was sitting there looking into a mirror without making any faces or sobs. A few hours prior, she had returned from the hospital and the situation remained unchanged. It wasn't what she had anticipated. Inside her was the mind of Ino. But it was more than that. It was entwined with her own, twisted and broken. No one could do anything about it. The Konoha medical nin were in complete shock. It was unprecedented what had happened to her friend, rival, and fellow nin. Nobody had ever witnessed anything similar. Her emotions fluctuated drastically, and she became conscious of her own blackouts occurring in brief bursts into the girl's psyche. It appeared that there was nothing that anyone could do about any of it. As it was, they were managing to keep Ino alive. For the remainder of her life, she would remain as she was. She clenched her fist and turned to face her closet. She and Sasuke now wore black and gray uniforms similar to Naruto's, complete with masks, flak jackets, and swords. Sasuke had been given a tiger mask, and hers was that of a bear. Both her parents had congratulated her and shown a great deal of pride. Nobody knew where Naruto had disappeared to save only the Hokage. It was perplexing and exasperating. She closed her eyes tightly and collapsed back onto her mattress, asking, "Now what?" She had tested the issue on Shikamaru using Ino's Shinten Shin, and it had worked. What do I do? Who the hell am I? Like she had been doing it for a long time. It didn't matter that she didn't know if she could manage her new job at all. Her teammate would return in a few days at most, the old man had assured her. She had nothing to do but sit around and think until then. The worst that could happen, considering her attitude. Now that they were both Chunin, she and Sasuke had been informed they would shortly start their training to become Anbu members. She had demonstrated the requisite abilities and a degree of strategy, according to the Hokage, who had granted her the rank. Sasuke had received similar commendation. She was aware that Naruto was the reason the Anbu had become interested in them due to their prowess as spies and assassins. Nevertheless, she couldn't argue with the logic. She had gained a lot of insight into stealth from him, and their entire group had developed a certain level of expertise in espionage and assassination. It should have come as a bigger surprise, but it didn't. Shikamaru was not going to be joining them in the Anbu, but she had also been promoted to Chunin. After the meeting, Kakashi had met her and Sasuke and, as usual, had congratulated them late. For a while, it had distracted her from the recent events and felt good. In a few days, they would receive their new task. Although her parents had given her a lot of praise, her home had always been a depressing place. Rather than being upset with her, Ino's parents had been incredibly encouraging. She was a symbol of hope for their daughter. Although her family was aware of it, she was unsure of how to feel about it all. It was almost excessive. It was not Naruto. She rubbed her eyes and said, "Where the hell is that jerk?" She was certain that if she had received a promotion, he had also. But it appeared that he had been assigned a mission of some kind. Her door was knocked on. When she opened it after sitting up, she saw a recognizable face standing behind a mask. "Hey. I just got back and heard about everything. Congratulations." He wore a mask resembling the fox that she had been given on his belt. Again, not all that shocking. Upon seeing her, Naruto appeared happy. He had already put on his gray and black uniform. The young lady blinked. She offered him a meek smile and said, "Oh. You're back then?" He gave a nod. "Yeah. I just wanted to drop by, it's not too late. I hope you don't mind." His partner gave him a nod. "Thanks. Have you seen Sasuke yet?" Naruto gave a headshake. "No, it's a bit late to make it over there tonight. I'll see him tomorrow." He moved aside as she left her room. "I also wanted to ask about, you know, Ino and all that." The kunoichi with pink hair blushed slightly. She gave a weak, humorless laugh and tapped her skull, saying, "Yeah. She's still in here. We don't know if there's anything anyone can do." Naruto nodded. "Don't worry. We'll do our best to figure it out." Sakura glanced at his uniform and blinked. It wasn't the same as hers. "Hey. You're..." The boy reddened slightly. He looked a little embarrassed and scratched the back of his head. "Yeah. Junin. I'm not sure how I managed that. It kind of worries me. I'm not interested in a promotion I didn't earn." Seems that whole mission thing they sent me off on was some kind of stupid test. Go figure. Sakura gave a nod. Wow. I'm sure you'll do great. You're the best of the three of us. I guess. I'm not that surprised really. He snorted a little laugh. Shocked the hell out of me. We're supposed to meet tomorrow afternoon. Some kind of assignment. I'm planning on seeing Sasuke in the morning. You know, congratulate him and all. The young lady gave a nod. Yeah. Thanks. I'll see you then. Naruto nodded to her. He turned away, took a few steps, then turned to look back. Yeah. I just wanted to say congratulations. He chuckled artificially and said, hey. Don't worry, we'll do our best and help your friend. I'd rather not have to teach you to shut up again. That girl can really run her mouth. We'll be fine, all of us. Sakura gave him a brief annoyed look before grinning. Naruto, thanks. Congratulations. I'll see you tomorrow. Leaving her standing in the hallway, he nodded. She went back inside her room after opening her door. Her bed suddenly appeared really cozy and welcoming. Naruto waved to get Sasuke's attention, grinning broadly. As he strolled down Konoha's main street in the direction of the boys' house, he would run into his teammate. Hey. People were stopping and meeting in front of each other as they went about their daily lives. The ninja with raven hair had his chunin vest on over his regular attire. With his sword resting on his back, Sasuke exuded a sense of ease. Huh? Oh. It's you. As he approached, he appeared momentarily perplexed, as though he was suddenly realizing something. He seemed to be welcomed by Naruto. Congratulations and all. I see you got your promotion. Sorry I missed it. I had to run off on a mission it seems. Sasuke's wide eyes were fixed on him. You're. A tiny sigh was released by the hooded nin. They weren't supposed to wear their Anbu uniforms yet, but they were allowed to wear the blades. Yeah. Junin. I missed your promotion because I got sent off on some sort of test. I was going to drop by and see you last night, but it was a bit late. He was wearing his vest. He'd worn it the previous evening after getting fitted for it, and he hadn't planned to wear it again until he began working with his team to train for his new role. With a frown, Sasuke peered at the floor. Hey. Seems I'm still stuck under your thumb then. Naruto had an irritated expression. Yeah well. It was kind of a surprise for me too, you know. Uzumaki? The two asked as they turned to see Shikamaru approaching them. Hey. I see. Hey. That's. Naruto scratched at the back of his head and said, yes. His son looked at the two chatting to his father, stuck his head out the back of his hood, yawned, and settled down to rest on his shoulder. Whistling, Shikamaru thrust his hands into his pockets. Wow. Now I feel sorry for you. I thought I had it bad. Sasuke scowled at the two of them. Sorry? Naruto appears to brighten up a little. Well, it's nice to know someone understands. I just hope I'm not in over my head. Everyone keeps saying how great it must be. It's kind of a pain, really. Shikamaru let out a little grunt. Yeah. Tell me about it. I guess I can't blame them. I can't argue that it's not fair, I guess. Uzumaki laughed. Yeah. I suppose not. I guess I overdid it a bit. Sasuke gave a shrug. Whatever. I'm supposed to be meeting with Kakashi soon. Something about training. Naruto gave him a quick look. He turned to face Shikamaru and said, yeah. Sakura and I are leaving for a bit. It seems we're going with that perverted Sennin to find someone. A medical nin. Seems Hokage and Jiraiya know of someone who might be able to help with Ino. I've got to meet with Sakura this afternoon and meet up with him. We might be gone a little while. Sasuke appeared a little taken aback. Huh? You're leaving? His colleague nodded. We're going to get some training done while we're gone, I guess. I suppose it's technically a mission, but I think we'll get by with just the two of us this time. Shouldn't be that hard. Shikamaru furrowed her brow gravely. Well, good luck. Uchiha gave them both a nod. He turned away and left, his hands in his pockets, saying, well, I've got to be going. I guess. I'll see you when you get back then. Nara scowled behind him. What's with that guy? Shaking his head, Naruto laughed. He saw Shikamaru arched an eyebrow a little and peered over his shoulder before saying, he's always been like that. Don't worry about it. Oh, hey, Kira. The female Kitsune bowed her head and smiled at him. Hello, boss. Shikamaru let out a little sigh. It was another total babe, dressed at least 2 sizes too small. What is it with you and women anyway? The person asked. She gave him a small, courteous bow, looking shy. Head hung, Naruto did. Just another of the pervert crew. This is Kira, she's one of the foxes. Nara gave a headshake. He said, yeah. I figured. Hey. I'm Shikamaru. And turned to leave. He glanced at the girl accompanying him and said, I'll see you then. I'm supposed to meet with Choji soon. Nice to meet you, I guess. The boy in the hood waved a little. As he awoke a little more, Kitsune yipped at the girl next to him and said, yeah, see ya. What's up? The girl with violet hair blushed a little. I'm supposed to accompany you. Kurama and Masara are here to train the prince. I'm supposed to train with you. The boy's eyes appeared a little wide. Train me? What? Some sort of fox techniques? I thought I couldn't do that kind of stuff cause I'm human. The girl nodded and appeared to consider it. Well, I am supposed to help with your technique, I suppose. Naruto shrugged a little. I think I'm supposed to be learning from that perverted senin. I don't know if I'll have time to train with you. With a smile, the girl shook her head. Don't worry. It won't interfere. He gave her a quick glance and nodded while scowling. They strolled silently down the road for a little while before saying, I guess it's all right. I've got a bit of time before I meet with him and Sakura anyway. They veered off the main road and onto an empty path overlooked by the Hokage's faces. Naruto stopped in the middle of the silent stretch, put his hands in his pockets, and looked up at the faces on the mountain. Standing behind him, Kira smiled subtly. You must be proud of him. The boy gave her a second glance. Huh? Proud of him? Gazing up at the mountain, the girl looked. The fourth, he was a great man. Naruto appeared taken aback. He hung his head a bit and then turned to face the man, saying, I never met him. I don't know, I'm not so sure I like him. The demon inside of him had been sealed by him. The one who, in his youth, had made everyone despise him. It wasn't as bad as it had been when his eyes softened. Looking perplexed, Kira asked, what do you mean? The boy gave her a sidelong glance. He's the one who sealed that. The queen inside me. He died saving the village. I guess. I can't really hate him. Now things were different. It was something he had never given much thought to previously. Kira gave him a smile. I didn't know him myself, but I remember him. I've lived around Konoha my whole life. I don't remember before the village was here, but I remember when it was very young. The fourth, he was very strong, and the kindest of the Hokage. It's a shame he had such a short life. The boy looked at the stone face, nodding. Even though he had seen it before, he had never really given it much thought. The people of Konoha treated him differently than they had in the past, I guess. While some people continued to give him icily directed looks, the majority of people now greeted him with smiles. Parents would no longer move around him, bringing their kids close to their sides. Kira reached over to touch his shoulder. You should be proud of him. He did a great thing for this village. He defeated the queen, but she was blushing. Please, don't tell her I said it. But a dark sensation stabbed at his heart as he stared at her. For a split second, he felt numb and cold. For an instant, a flash of anger flared inside him, but it quickly subsided. His spouse was the one who had murdered the man, as well as Iruka's parents and numerous other Konoha residents. Kira said this quietly. Do not mistake what I say, I don't think she wished to be defeaed by him. She doesn't like humans, but there was one she hated above any in Konoha. She had no grudge against this place. Your father, the fourth, did a great thing in stopping that one's hatred. She didn't want to be sealed inside his son, but destroying this place was not her will. As he stared at her, Naruto became motionless and his eyes widened. What? The girl smiled gently at him. She was not pleased with being sealed away, but her true anger was with the one who had summoned her here, and set her loose upon it to destroy it for his own reasons. She did not like being used for human ends, and she preferred being sealed away than being used for the ambitions of a mere human. Her face turned into a gloomy expression. It is why we were never made to destroy you and free her. She preferred imprisonment to being used as a tool by mere human filth. Naruto was motionless. He raised his gaze to the mountain once more. What do you mean? The fourth. My father. He's not. What? Kira stepped back, looking perplexed. You did not know that? Tears filled the boy's eyes. He went to his knees, saying, It's... Kitsune was licking his face while perched on his shoulder, asking, how? Why would he? His own son? The kid let out a little cry of frustration. The fox girl's gaze dropped to the earth. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said. Naruto pivoted to confront her. He was in tears. No. I never knew. No one ever told me. Why? Why wouldn't they? He said, his head sagging for a brief second before rising to his feet and displaying a perplexed look as something else appeared to penetrate his shock. He placed his hand on his son's head, rubbing the area behind his ears as he pulled the boy down into his arms and held him there. What's this about someone controlling the queen? He asked. The fox scowled at him, clearly annoyed. She looked away from him and said, no one can control her. It is said she was fooled, tricked into attacking this place somehow. His name was Madara. I do not know about how or why. Naruto peered at the mountain above him. Madara? The boy inquired, appearing to consider it. I don't know the name. Well, not anyone who wouldn't be long dead anyway. The Kitsune gave a nod and said nothing more. I see. After wiping his eyes with his sleeve, Naruto raised his gaze to the mountain. The fourth's face peered out over Konoha. He averted his gaze and briskly began to move forward. His eyes were filled with pain and confusion as he moved off, his head hung low. It doesn't matter anyway. I've got places to be. Astonished, the Kitsune quickly followed him. She was blushing a little bit and felt that she shouldn't have been running her mouth so much. Wait. I've got to come with you. Oh. Shit. Naruto turned to face Kitsune as he left, seeing through the crook of his other arm as the latter was using his teeth to tug on his sleeve. As the kid played, he slowed down and tried to fit his mouth around his hand and wrap his front paws around his wrist. Once more, he came to a stop and cast a sidelong glance at the face carved into the mountain, alongside the other three Hokage. He lowered his gaze once more to the inhumane object cradled in his arms. He was briefly followed by Kira, who appeared perplexed. You're sure? I mean, no one ever told me he was. My. The fox girl with violet hair nodded. Her head hung a little as she said, yes. I am certain. I'm sorry. I didn't know they never. Naruto looked into the fox kid's eyes and gave a slight snort that bordered on laughter. He rubbed Kitsune's soft, furry belly and said, I wonder what he'd think of his grandson. The kid was kicking his paws around and rubbing his head against his arm, looking happy. I wonder what Mom would think. Uncertain of what to say, Kira turned to face him. I don't know the answer to that. Well, I'm here. For my son. I'm going to be a better father than he was. I don't really care what he would think. The Kitsune nodded, flushed. Yes. I think he would have. If he could. He had a reputation as a good man. Naruto glanced at her over his shoulder. Maybe. It doesn't really matter anymore, does it? He asked as he resumed his leisurely stroll. Come on. I've got Places to go. Kira nodded, remaining silent. He didn't sound dejected or furious. Narrowing her eyes, she peered over her shoulder at the carving of her king's father. Under the stone faced stare of the former Hokage, she trailed behind him. Sakura approached Konoha's gates. She smiled at Naruto, carrying a traveling pack on her shoulders. It dimmed slightly when she saw the girl beside him, dressed in a yukata that was too small for a respectable girl. Naruto, who is this? The boy was standing close to the gates, leaning against the side of a building. This is Kira. The fox girl, who was dressed too modestly, smiled at her and bowed slightly to greet her. Hello. The kunoichi gave her a nod. Haruno Sakura, she said, turning to face the boy. Who is she? With a slight shrug, the girl said something quietly. I work for the boss. The girl with the pink hair looked down. Another one? Naruto just nodded and said, yup. She's coming with us. Sakura felt irritated. Huh? What for? Just before the Kitsune could respond, Jiraiya approached. He ignored the two teenagers and grinned at the attractive older girl. He was at her side in a moment, his eyes hungry. Well, hello. Who might you be? She blinked and tilted her head. She moved a bit closer to the boy in the neighborhood and grasped his shoulder, saying, I'm Kira. Eyebrow arched by Jiraiya. Oh. Are you a friend of Naruto? She gave a nod and took another step back. Why? Yes. Naruto sighed heavily and said, well, now we all know each other. He looked annoyed and said, can we just go now? Sakura gave him a scowl. What's with you? His gaze shifted to the gates. Haruno saw that the fox girl was hanging her head a little bit more and said, nothing. I just want to get out of here. The white-haired man retreated and began walking in the direction of the gates as she released Naruto and slightly moved away from him. Jiraiya let out a grunt. He winked at the girl with the violet hair and said, well, it was nice meeting you. Turning to face Sakura, he saw the girl frowning at him and said, come on you two. The kunoichi gave an eye roll. Where are we going? Who is this person we're supposed to find? Sennin gave a shrug. I'm not sure. Her name is Tsunade. Together, they all left the gates. Glancing over his shoulder, Jiraiya scowled. Inquired the girl Kira, who was trailing Naruto. Sakura was bugging him, but he was a little behind. It appeared as though the kunoichi was unaware that his focus was diverted. So, she can help Ino then? Sennin gave her a quick glance. I'm not sure. If she can't, there's no one who can. Sakura let out a gasp and looked down at the floor. She nodded while balling her fist. Jiraiya came to a halt, bringing Sakura with him. Naruto proceeded, passing Kira in his wake. Naruto. The boy gave him a quick glance. Huh? An old man with white hair rolled his eyes. What's with her? I only said I'd take you and the loud pushy girl. Sakura gave him a glare as her head snapped around. Loud pushy girl? Naruto scoffed at that. Huh? Oh. She's a Kitsune, she'll be fine. Kira gave him a tiny, endearing glare while scowling at him. Yes. I must accompany him. Jiraiya appeared to loosen up a bit more. Oh. Well, I guess it's something nice to look at on the way then. Why are you along anyway? Naruto isn't going to be able to play much. He's a Junin now, and I've agreed to see to start some of his training while we're away. Haruno felt irritated. Who the hell is this pervert anyway? Kira gave a shrug. I'm supposed to teach him as well. It won't interfere. He's the father of the prince, and he must be prepared. With a frown, the Sennin nodded. As long as it doesn't get in the way of his training. All right. Sakura gave a small growl. You're just going to let her tag along? The man laughed. Why not? I'm letting you tag along. He was glanced at by Naruto. Hey. I'm not training with you unless we're both learning something. If you want me to act like your student, you're training her with me. Jiraiya scowled. Hey. That's no way to. The boy got back to walking. I don't need you to become stronger. I'll find this Tsunade, and bring her back here if I've got to knock her out and kidnap her. I'll drag her back by force if I have to. Sakura gasped as she gave him a wide-eyed stare. Huh? Naruto, you don't have to. The boy paused, turned back to face her, and spoke again. It's true, I'm doing this for you, but it's not just for you. Shikamaru and Choji, both of them are relying on this too. That girl Ino as well. He seems serious. I won't fail. Sakura's gaze fell on the road. She felt compelled to act on, he's right. Not only for her own sake but also for Ino and the Yamanaka household. I can't fail either. Jiraiya appeared slightly irritated as he crossed his arms. How are you going to find her without me? You don't even know what she looks like. Walking a few paces ahead of them, Kira grinned. Yes, I do. Jiraiya, I recall when you were just a kid. She approached Naruto's side, shifting her hips in the process. My age exceeds 200 years. I'm aware of the woman we're after. Tsunade, Nin the slug. Although I didn't know her well, I did see the three of you when you were younger. Practicing in these forests. Sakura imagined a very large woman and felt a slight disgust. Slug Nin? A young Tsunade smirked at Jiraiya and stood staring at him with her hand on her hip. Jiraiya gasped. This one, yes? The young lady disappeared, leaving the violet-haired fox girl to take her place once more. Sakura gave a blink. It was not what she had anticipated. Oh. Is that her appearance? Kira gave a nod. Well, she's older now, but yes. Naruto glanced at her before turning back to face the man. Well? Sennin, with his white hair, sighed heavily. I should probably do that. Even if Sarutobi killed the two of you, she would never forgive me. Indeed, knock her out and drag her back. Sakura appeared a little annoyed. What? Do you not believe that we can? Shaking his head, the man crossed his arms. There is no chance. She is not a helpless person. She is one of the legendary three of Konoha. Though you two are quite talented, you would be far more foolish than you realize to try something like that with her. She is extremely strong and has a short fuse. She doesn't care about that Junin guy. Glancing back over his shoulder, Naruto nodded. Well, in any case, it's time for us to leave. So that we can begin our training, I want to locate her and return. Sakura gave a nod. I want to be myself again when I become an Anbu. Jiraiya laughed. Indeed, inspired. Fine. That can't hurt, I suppose. We'll collaborate, I promise. But all I had planned to do was train with him. I'm not counting on you too. She gave the man a scowl. Why? Since I'm a female? The Sennin gave his head a scratch. Not really. The expression on her face made him laugh. You kind of make me think of Tsunade. Keep from getting too giddy. He joined the group and began to walk while staring up at the sky. To be honest, I'm not sure if you can pull it off. He has a funny way of reminding me of someone. However, completely different personality. Sakura scowled behind Naruto. He seems a little grumpy right now. Were those Kitsune you owned the whole night? With a sigh, Kira turned to face her. Well, we gave it our best shot. But he's obstinate. The girl looked stunned. What? Naruto scowled over his shoulder at the three of them. Simply put, I've been thinking a lot today. Apologies. Put it out of your mind. I'll be all right. Sakura frowned at the girl with the violet hair and appeared to calm down. Tramp. She raised her gaze to Jiraiya. Naruto, reminds you of someone? The man gave a nod. Yes. My student was the fourth. He kind of reminds me of him, though he wasn't as serious. Sakura's head cocked. Are you serious? The fourth? That is peculiar. Naruto turned away from them. Not really. Why wouldn't I bring up my father with him? When he said it, his tone became a little tight, and he seemed a little angry. Sakura gave him a wide-eyed look. Jiraiya clenched his fist and lowered his gaze. He glanced in the direction of the fox girl. I see. The road made the kunoichi frown. His father was. Jiraiya gave a nod in response. Yes. Gazing at the girl with violet hair, he pondered. I'm not surprised at all. The Kitsune would know that, of course. I guess it's fortunate that he is aware. He cast a sidelong glance at the village. I never consented to keep it from him. When did he find out, I wonder? Is Sarutobi even aware that he's been discovered? He muttered something under his breath and grunted. It's not important anyway. He came to the conclusion that keeping it hidden from the boy or anyone else, for that matter, was no longer necessary. Sakura appeared to consider it. I had no idea. I haven't heard anything concerning that. Naruto appeared to be at ease once more. What difference would it make if you did? It is not significant. To become a ninja, I had to put in just as much work as everyone else. No matter who my parents were, I have a lot to live up to now, so I'm going to try my hardest. The Sennin nodded gravely. He's not wrong, you know. Come on, please. He watched the boy go ahead of them, a look of longing mixed with sadness in his eyes. Kira stepped back to the boy's side and remained in close proximity to him. Sakura accompanied Jiraiya as they began their journey away from Konoha along the road. With his fist pressed against his cheek, Orochimaru was seated in a chair. He was in a room filled with clutter and books on tables and shelves, lit by candles. He was not talking, just glaring ahead. He faced Kabuto, who was standing there. Sir? With a frown, the serpent man looked at his medical nin. Well? I'm not certain. Since your body is doing so well, we won't require another for some time. With a frown, the medial nin pushed his glasses up his nose. What is our next move? The Sannin snarled. I'm not sure yet. He cast his gaze forward. Suggestions? Kabuto gave a headshake. Could we murder the Nine-Tails child? Uzumaki could be looked after by me. Get rid of him. Orochimaru leaned forward, his eyes closed as he contemplated. I failed. The Spy was aware enough not to say anything. His teacher chuckled. Nothing to say? The nin with gray hair shook his head. I can't think of anything. Hokage is unachievable, and Konoha won't host the Chunin exam for a few more years. It will be too well guarded even then. Now that I've been exposed, I won't be able to get into the exams again. Orochimaru shot a snide look. The fox kid? Not a chance, he'll be more circumspect than the Hokage if what we hear is true. Kabuto nodded. Well, I've begun investigating that. I fear there won't be anything for a while that is feasible enough to build a plan around. However, the young man, Naruto, is a busy ninja. The Sannin gave a nod. Indeed. Most likely a Chunin now. While not impossible, it would not benefit us in any way. The man to his right nodded. He presented an unforeseen issue. We will remember him for the next time. He's far more talented than we thought. To play that way with those four. The serpent man gave a growl. Kimimaro ought to have been here with us. When I sent the four of them after that brat, those idiots ought to have realized they needed to use their cursed seals. Kabuto grinned darkly and nodded. They're not dead, but they don't feel very cozy. They will not commit the same careless error twice. Orochimaru gave a nod. Take them to the brink of demise. I wish to confirm. The nin with gray hair nodded. Finished already. They are certainly going through a lot of suffering, I promise. His master looked at him, and he stiffened. What about Uchiha? The sly nin gave a nod. Of course, I still want him. But he's not by himself. They will be on guard, and Konoha knows he's been targeted. The ninja gave a nod. We should focus our efforts on him then. Indeed. That seems like the best choice as of right now. There's still time for that. There's no reason to hurry. Orochimaru picked at his face's side. I'll dye him in my colors yet. Kabuto appeared to be a little preoccupied. I think Kakashi will be keeping an eye on him. He's a pretty good target. He and his associates appear to be experts at covert operations and have a solid track record. He probably won't be simple to find. I have to figure out how to be near him. If he is to be of any use, he will require the cursed seal. With his fist in his chin, Orochimaru leaned back in his chair. Kabuto nodded. Indeed. Things are complicated by his blood. The transfer could be risky if he didn't have the curse seal to reposition his body and get it ready for you. It might turn you down. If that occurs, there's a slight chance you might not be as lucky as the last time. If it does, you might lose your chance to inherit the Uchiha bloodline, but I think you'll make it. His boss scowled. I understand that. Itachi is not a practical choice. He is much too powerful. Greater than I am, which is why I require the younger Sasuke. His head was bowed by his right hand. Well, it will take Sasuke a few months to leave the village. Before we can get him to leave the village, I believe he has also been made Chunin and will need some time to train. Orochimaru gave a chuckle. Indeed. He'll most likely be accompanied by the fox concubine as well. Kabuto concurred. Indeed. That will present a chance to accomplish two goals at once. His teacher shook his head and laughed. Not at all. 3. That little bitch will also die, along with both of his friends. It will be harder to bring Sasuke to us the longer they're together. He's evolving. His hatred was pathetic and far from sufficient. They must be kept apart. The nin with gray hair scowled and looked away. I should make sure the 4 failures don't pass away, if nothing else. Their usefulness is still ongoing. Kabuto. The man came to a stop and cast a sidelong glance. Yes? What of Kimimaro? Kabuto averted his gaze. I'm not certain. It appears unprofessional. His condition is getting worse. I doubt that anyone can help him in any way. He'll be helpful for a while, but I wouldn't advise moving him. It might not be feasible. Orochimaru scowled. Therefore, Uchiha might be needed sooner than we think. But there's still lots of time for that. This body is functioning properly. His ninja doctor nodded. Indeed. There aren't many indications of breakdown. That ought to last for a while. Good. Kakashi was waiting, leaning against the candy store wall. He pivoted and glanced at 2 recognizable nin approaching. Hey. Together, the 2 of you look great. Do you have a partner? Kurenai and Asuma were approaching him while strolling side by side. The woman smiled and said something. I assumed you were not a fan of sweets. Why are you in this place? The nin with gray hair shook his head. Not at all. I'm just weighing on Sasuke while I grab a few things. He cast a sidelong glance at the pair of enigmatic men, clothed in black kimonos adorned with red clouds. Their faces were covered and they wore Sugagasa hats. Sasuke approached. It's very different for you to arrive first, Kakashi-sensei. The man looked at his student with joy. It only happens occasionally. The 2 figures that had been sitting in the shop had disappeared, and the boy seemed to notice. I hate sweets. The moment Kurenai and Asuma disappeared, he didn't blink or wince. Sasuke scowled as he gave him a look. We won't be offering assistance? The 2 weren't supposed to be here. The man gave a nod. They'll be all right. He reached over to touch the boy's shoulder. We'll be working out together for a while. Both Sakura and Naruto are. His pupil gave a nod. I am aware. Naruto ran into me this morning. He made a comment about leaving to find assistance for that girl, Ino. Well, I'll meet with you later. Kakashi gave a nod. I'm sure we'll receive some training. We may not get another opportunity to train together like this. With a nod, the boy turned back to face the table. You're running off after them, aren't you? When he landed on a nearby rooftop, Kakashi took a quick look at his side. Well, I suppose that I am. Right next to him stood Sasuke, whose plan to disappear from the boy's side had not gone as planned. You know, I'm not a genin anymore. I have no problem lending a hand. His teacher sighed slightly and nodded. I'll just provide support for them. Probably won't require assistance. You and I will meet tomorrow. This is probably unimportant. Sasuke's eyes narrowed. Fine. Kakashi hurried away, leaving the boy waiting on the roof. Glancing over his shoulder, he noticed that the boy seemed to have disappeared. I hope he's really gone. He was thinking about something Jiraiya had told him a few days earlier. Until he was positive, he didn't want Sasuke to go near the two strangers. However, he felt uneasy. Jiraiya had asked to take care of Naruto since a group known as Akatsuki was skulking around. An association in which Uchiha Itachi was involved. It appeared as though the Sennin connected it to the Nine Tails. The Junin touched down in the roadway. Maeda Guy gave a startled blink. Ah, Kakashi. He gave the man a smile. I'm running low on time. Kurenai and Asuma have just ventured north in pursuit of two strangers who seem extremely dangerous. I need you to support them by going. Guy gave a blink. Huh? Kakashi looked at him gravely. I have no time to elaborate. I'm going to report this to the Anbu, but I think someone who should be kept away from this is following me. Simply leave. The man nodded, scowling. Very well. He turned and headed toward Konoha's northernmost point. Kakashi scowled and took off running. With a frown, Sasuke observed the hidden scene in the vicinity. He watched Guy go in one direction and Kakashi head off towards the east. He watched his instructor walk away while he closed his eyes. North, huh? His instructor's back was to him. He hadn't noticed the conversation, and he had a sneaking suspicion that Kakashi was aware he was being followed. After thinking for a moment, he set off after Guy. I wonder what's going on.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.